Recording, meeting started.
Everybody, I want to welcome you to the CB1, the May 1st meeting, the Transportation and Street Activity Permit Committee, CB1, Manhattan CB1. I'm Betty Kay, the chair, who's Jess Coleman, who is my vice chair, and Zach Rama, who is the district manager. And I'd like to start by there, so I can see what's going on here. I have no memory. Definitely happened. We only have 3 items tonight. First one is one we've been waiting for. We're going to hear about micro hubs. And if you want to go to the next slide, get started. Catherine is here and she's going to introduce herself and the topic, and her other fellow speaker is online. And if you move him to camera.
Oh, I think it's only me here tonight, actually, so.
Joining online.
I'm here online. This is Huma. Hey, Catherine.
You could join, all right, so thank you so much, Huma. Huma was actually trying to come in person, so, but I really appreciate you all being accommodating. So yeah, I guess I can get started.
Yeah, go to the
All
slide,
right.
viewers.
Perfect. So just jump over here to what we'll be talking about. So I'm Catherine Ponte. I'm a senior freight planner with New York City Department of Transportation. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I'm also joined by my supervisor and our project lead, Huma Hussein, who is our deputy director of freight mobility at New York City DOT. She's here online. I'll be giving most of the presentation, but she'll be available for questions and to give further clarification as needed. Basically, this is mostly informational. We'll be going over like a context of what we're doing with our pilot, giving you all a bit of a description of what we've done so far and sort of how we envision the pilot working as we move forward, and then having a chance to hear your thoughts, have a chance for Q&A, and and see if there are any areas in CB1 that you feel would be well suited for this pilot. So overall context, as you all know, we've got a lot of trucks in our neighborhood, especially on our local streets. This is generally a big part of our kind of rise in e-commerce. And as we get more deliveries at home, we start to see more trucks within our local communities. And this is a major issue that New York City DOT has been trying to plan around. Right now, within our supply chain, we've got, about 80% of our deliveries coming by truck. We are looking to kind of diversify that, and we see micro hubs as a potential way to diversify how we get our freight moving throughout our city. This has, these percentages have persisted since COVID, have gone up definitely during COVID. So we really are seeing this shift away from truck activity on our commercial streets to more truck activity in our residential streets. And this is causing a lot of problems, as you all know. I'm sure you've witnessed this. I know I see this going to 55 Water quite a bit, where we have a lot of transloading and package sorting happening in the right of way. We have double parking, which causes all sorts of safety challenges. And, when we see, again, more and more of these trucks in areas that weren't, these roadways and areas that aren't well designed for them. So, and again, we have, this is more than just, this problem has been known to us, right? And we've been thinking about it. And so one of the, the solutions as in terms of micro hubs is something we've talked about in a number of our plans, which have gone forward. And so you can see that this, there's a sort of a history here. And it was also part of a local law that was passed that really asked us to study how we can do micro distribution or micro hubs in a New York City context. And so we initiated our FEI, and we have since put together pilot recommendations and have launched our pilot, which was definitely a journey, but we're very excited. One element of this is, we're looking for smaller sustainable modes. Some of those include commercial cargo bikes, but that's not the only mode that we're interested in. But certainly it helped when we had the commercial cargo bike rules put out there that, you know, we've been able to expand the kinds of cargo bikes that are available. That has helped a lot of the companies that are interested in sustainable and safer last mile, you know, transportation, especially moving away from truck transport of goods to be able to use cargo bikes. And then we also have the zoning amendment that was passed last year, and this has enabled micro hub activity to happen within a broader range of zoning districts, and we are already seeing within commercial districts, you know, micro hubs being set up on private spaces like you know, parking lots and such. And so that is happening parallel, but is outside of our pilot. So our specific pilot is really looking to, you know, define and test how microhubs can work, especially within our public right-of-ways, to address some of the challenges that I noted earlier. And we are really looking at, you know, trying to create an environment where we can push the freight industry to move towards smaller, low emission or electric and human powered modes for final delivery for both sustainability goals for the city as well as for safety. And you can see we have, you know, these are our main goals that we're trying to achieve through this pilot. And we're looking, as I had noted, for sustainability and safety not just for folks like the rest of the public who's using our roadways, but also for the delivery workers themselves who are often at higher risk of crashes and injury through their work. And, you know, for the case, we're going to be talking mostly about on-street sites for Community Board 1, but in the case where, you know, we are looking at off-street sites on sort of public municipal lots or like under elevated structures, you know, that's also an opportunity to potentially increase programming if there's an area that has, you know, that where there's maybe not a lot of like structured programming happening, which we've explored some sites in Brooklyn along that regard. So we are at phase 1. We have just implemented our first micro hubs. We're looking to expand and test, you know, within New York City. This is a citywide project, but certainly the highest interest is in Manhattan and in these denser areas with like mixed use. So we are very interested in seeing how these sites could work within communities like this one. And, you know, we're going to start with the respondents who participated in our RFEI. And then after our first year, once we've done the initial testing, it will be open to a wider pool of applicants who would like to participate. And in terms of siting criteria, we are, you know, looking at, you know, high density mixed use land use, proximity to truck routes, to transit for the workers to be able to arrive not using cars, for bike lane networks, both for worker arrival and also if the, you know, mode of choice is bicycle. And then ideally, you know, connecting to our priority investment areas in the street plan and working with demand. And in terms of like whether it's like a community board is very interested in having a micro hub because they're seeing these kinds of challenges and they want to try to find a site that works, or from the companies that are excited to bring this service to a community. And then, you know, our placement criteria is really making sure there's sufficient space for the truck parking, transloading, and whatever that mode is. And so we have a number of different designs that we've worked out based on different strategies that are in use. So like there's a truck to like a walkers with push carts will be a slightly smaller footprint versus a truck to say a cargo bike that's like one of those like quad formats, like will be a slightly larger footprint. And I'll show some pictures, an upcoming slide of some of the first ones that we've implemented. And then we have signage and markings to like kind of designate the area to keep the area for the transloading and the sort of sustainable modes away from traffic. And also to like, we have a like signed parking spot for the truck to park. And these are some conceptual images to kind of give the kind of overall vision of what, we're hoping to achieve. And these are,
Could you go back?
oh yeah, of course. So this is the conceptual image. So you can see this is an image showing the truck parked at the front. You have a transloading, potentially with a pop-up tent that was, provided by the truck for the workers to kind of work out of the sun. And then they'd be moving those packages either onto a hand cart, or this is the case where we're imagining this company is using both hand carts and cargo bicycles, so then they could potentially be transloading onto the cargo bicycles as well for maybe deliveries that are a little further away.
I'm sorry, I'm being dense today, so apologies. What's this right behind the truck?
That's like an imagined, that's basically the space where the workers would be sorting the packages. So instead of doing that in the middle of the street, which is terrible for everyone, we're
So you're
like
just trying to
giving
protect
them,
them a little bit.
exactly, we're giving them a protected space. And, we're not looking to put any like built structures in the roadbed. So, we like are imagining, and we've talked to the companies about if they want to use like a pop-up tent or something that they can put up and take down at the end of the day, that could be something that they could do, but.
Can I say,
yes.
Brandon, and they're not on the sidewalk either.
Mhm.
Exactly.
So they
Exactly.
would bring their own tent and
Yes.
keep it in the truck?
That's what we're.
So when they're done, all of it would disappear
Yes.
and then the next truck would show up, they would put up their own tent.
And right now, that's a really good question. So right now, because of enforcement challenges, for the initial first couple sites, we're just doing one company per site. So it's like they get a permit.
So they don't share.
They're not sharing.
Okay.
I think sharing would be a wonderful thing in the future, once we have like a mechanism in place to make sure that everyone shares fairly. But right now, in terms of like if we're asking NYPD support for enforcement, it's really most helpful if it's like the site is permitted to one company, they have use of the space, and then the everything that all the vehicles that they're bringing to the space are branded, so it's really clear that they're the ones who are supposed to be there using the space and using the space as intended
Mhm.
for transloading. And then, and they'll be using that throughout the day. So the idea is like the trucks from that same company will come, drop off the materials. The workers will be then taking the packages, sorting them. There'll be a team that will be doing the like final delivery, and then coming back to the site, and the next truck will drop off more.
Do you know
Yeah.
how many companies there are that do this, that are interested in this pilot and that would be
So-
deposited about our
Right,
district?
right now, we have 8 companies that are interested, that were part of the RFEI, and then there's been more beyond those 8 that have reached out and said they would like, they're interested or they'd like to participate in like when we expand out to more participants. So, but right now it's, it's all a big task. Like part of the idea behind the permit model for the on-street spaces was that once we worked out, once we worked out how best to like implement this, the idea was that it would be a better entry point for smaller companies. So to encourage like more local, smaller businesses to participate, that don't have the resources of say an Amazon, who like are in a better space to kind of afford like private real estate to do this sort of transloading. So the idea is like if we can create the system, and so we've set up the structure to test out this curbside permit system, is to basically set up the groundwork so that ideally in the future, smaller startups and businesses that are interested in sort of last mile delivery and sustainable last mile delivery can more easily enter the market and provide more services to the public.
But that sounds like we would have a lot more of these everywhere, if that was the case, right?
I mean, ideally, like this, it would be, in an ideal world, it would be better to have a dedicated curb space than like what's happening now, which is sidewalk and street.
Well, what I'm saying is that
Yeah.
like if there's 12 companies, then we
Mhm.
would need 12 spaces down here and they would all be competing for last mile delivery access, right? And so if we
Mhm.
think about like who we're buying from and we don't really know who's delivering, then how do we know who we're supporting?
So how, right now, the way that the assignment works is we have it weighted so that smaller companies will have will have a more of a first pick. So, you know, we're kind of working with the companies on like the final like assignments. So like let's say you know, there's like 12 spots available. You know, we would kind of we would let like the way our kind of selection process is, or at least the like kind of site assignment process is, we would kind of we were providing a bit more of a chance for smaller companies and for companies that have like a dedicated vision of sustainability.
If I could jump in on this question too.
Yeah, please,
Um,
Yeah, thank you so
Catherine.
much for answering
Yeah.
the questions. I really appreciate it.
yeah,
No, I think you brought up a good point about like there are a number of delivery companies beyond the big ones, and we don't have the capacity to have 12 micro hubs in one tiny neighborhood to serve all of them. So
Right.
really, like as Catherine is pointing out, is this is a first phase where we are identifying only one company to use the space, but the real model that we want to push towards is a shared space that allows all those companies to share one micro hub versus
yeah.
there being 12 different ones. That is not the ideal goal, is that every single company has access to a single micro hub in every neighborhood, because that's not viable, nor is it how we want the curb to be allocated. So this is just an initial test until we can figure out
Thank you.
enforcement and sharing.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. And thanks for emphasizing that because that would
Yeah.
seem untenable.
And like yeah, and to thank you, yeah, thanks for the clarification. And I also like to that point, like Huma made a really like good reminder that you know we're looking at 20 to at the most 36 sites over the span of 3 years, like citywide. So really, like what would be realistic within this base of the pilot here in terms of like an on street sites? Like we're talking maybe like 1, 2, at most 3 sites, like within the community board. I mean, just because we have to spread it out throughout the city. So
Right. Thank you.
yeah, no problem. Okay, so moving along. So these are some of the examples of the on-street sites that were our first to launch. These are part of the Smart Curbs pilot up in the Upper West Side, CB 7. And so we have, you know, these are spaces that are accommodating truck to cargo bike, and we had a cargo bike kind of come out for the photos of the first kind of implementation. And then we have sort of the one kind of to the right of that is truck to walkers, and I think the last one is like a combo of like truck to walkers and e-cargo van. So, but it's but yeah, it's there, you know, so you can see it's pretty like simple design. It's really creating this kind of safe space for the workers to be outside of, you know, the rest of the, you know, to kind of take them outside of the traffic areas, and to provide spaces for their vehicles to like drop off and transload. And then this is the off-street model that we're looking at in, you know, a couple locations, but I don't think there's any locations in CB1 that would accommodate an off-street
I
hub.
think we do, underneath the FDR. That's
Well, there's a lot of bicycles.
Yeah, it's a pretty active area, so it would, but yes, like that would be a conversation with all the other, so like, I think in the case of under the FDR, like that's a very hopping location, and like the areas on the dock side are busy. You know, there may be some micro hubs with blue highways down in the future, but I think right now, it's like, it doesn't, like, we were really looking at for, sites under elevated structures at like more like where there's just a lot of like illegal parking and it's sort of.
Besides too, that when we talked about Pier 6,
Mhm.
where there's gonna be delivery from the blue highways, those cargo bikes. Tammy had passed, and I think the resolution was passed at that time. CB1 is positioned with asking those cargo bikes use the space underneath the elevator.
Mhm.
And eventually it's going to be the resiliency project. We don't know when it's gonna happen, but that's also gonna be involved. So there are multiple things in
Yeah.
that space. You're right.
I just want to say, it is extensive, and
Mhm.
the area underneath the FDR,
Yeah.
and certain areas, it's very wide, and it would not infringe upon bike lanes or pedestrian paths at all. And actually, that's the ideal place, because you're actually shielded from the weather. It's actually better for the delivery people.
Cool.
And then
Yeah.
also, it also will block some of the noise, because I anticipate with those trucks, with the lift gates rising and lowering, there's gonna be noise. And then also, I mean, as this goes on, the cargo will get heavier. And if you're around these sites where they're doing it on the streets, it does get loud. I mean, from the packages, they're
Right.
not very careful with them, I'm just gonna tell you, I've seen them, they haven't, so please consider those areas.
Do you have a cross street, with, in terms of like the FDR locations that like
Consider
text?
Peck Slip.
Let's get through the
All
question.
right, yeah, sorry, thanks. Yeah, we're being leisurely. I appreciate it. So really, like, we're almost at the end. DOT's role, as you know, I mentioned, vetting and managing the participants, coordinating, and screening pilot locations. We've developed terms and conditions for participation. I'll quickly show that. And then coordinating these other items and, you know, and then we have these are our conditions for participations. Again, really focusing on the sustainable, aspects, and on, you know, putting the onus on the companies to, for the privilege of like utilizing these spaces to support, and lead maintenance, have data sharing, and, you know, really honor that that they're going to behave, you know, they're using these spaces as intended and will restrain from, transloading in ways that aren't safe, in nearby streets. So that is the presentation, and happy to take questions.
Cody?
Yes.
Sort of not hypothetical.
Mhm.
Are there simultaneous conversations going on, you know, assuming that cargo bikes and other last mile delivery modes will be using bike lanes? Are there conversations happening at DOT about the expansion of the size of bike lanes because of this just cyclists?
Yes, those conversations are definitely happening. And there's also conversations happening about, you know, where, like, you know, the cargo bikes don't necessarily have to use the bike lanes either. So there may be instances where they even elect not to, if it makes sense. But I do think there are a lot of, this is like a really great moment, where we are thinking, strategically about, you know, how do we, if we're inviting more cargo bikes to be part of our delivery, landscape, then, and our last mile freight landscape, like how can we accommodate them?
Jess?
So you alluded to it earlier, but I mean, the issue that we often have is not necessarily space. We do have loading zones now.
Yeah.
Like, talk about where Mitch and I live on Duane Street.
Mm-hmm.
They don't stop, they're sorting on the street, not because there's not a space for it, but they're filled with placard parkers. And I mean, these are, and I don't mean this pejoratively at all, I'm a fan of these are glorified loading zones. And there are gonna be people who are gonna park in them.
Yeah.
So, what, I mean, you alluded to before that, you know, you want people to use it more fairly, me too, but is the DOT just hoping that there'll be a solution by then, or is there a plan for, because it won't work if people are just parking there instead of in a loading zone?
So, I mean, well, certainly for the first year, we're gonna, like, we've been coordinating with NYPD, on kind of monitoring the sites, monitoring for placard abuse. And, And I think that we're gonna like use this as like a learning opportunity. We're also exploring, there are other cities that are using like kind of more digital solutions for space sharing. There are other countries that have some interesting systems of like, you know, how we have people reporting trucks idling. Apparently in other countries, they have similar approaches to reporting cars
We know all about that.
parking in loading zones or micro distribution areas. So there's,
But
yeah,
Yeah,
there
so-
are ways, there are strategies out there, but like what will work here is still a big question.
yeah, because I mean, that would require like legislative action. Is there anything, if nothing else happens? Is there anything that you guys could do yourselves? Like, are there design solutions or is there anything you've thought about?
Giant concrete blocks.
Well, so I'll add
Yeah.
even though they look like glorified loading zones, the regulation of them is different. The rules that regulate how they're enforced and what's allowed in there is slightly different. And there is like uh and yeah, and the physical elements, the um granite blocks and the delineators help, but the fact that the name of the company is on the sign makes it very specific who can be there and allows our PD officers to be a bit more intentional about enforcement, but also the towing opportunity as well. The partners actually have the ability to tow vehicles out of that space if they so choose, which is written in the rules, and that would never be allowed on any other curb regulation.
That's good.
Interesting.
Yeah, Brendan and then Tammy, 'cause Tammy, I see it.
Few things, and we're gonna jump around a bit. This is intended mostly for day work, correct? So I guess, or is there a chance that like this would also include overnight
It
loading and unloading?
It could include nighttime work, though. I think for practical reasons, we're anticipating it will be mostly during the day. But if it happens, we have like conditions within the agreement that if they're doing nighttime work, that they need to like follow our recommendations for quiet delivery that are part of our off-hour deliveries program.
And then, can you talk a bit about like how the existing pilot is going on the Upper West Side? What like challenges have y'all seen? What feedback have you gotten from the community?
So we just launched like a week ago. So
Okay.
it's very, very early. I guess I would say we are hoping to get, get a sense of like, now, like I guess in probably a month from now, we'll have a bit more time to have, seen how it's working. We do have mechanisms. There's on the pedestrian level sign, not only does it give an explanation, but there's a QR code and we are collecting feedback that way. People also have the option of offering feedback through 311 and sort of normal pathways that way too. And we'll be getting feedback as part of our data sharing agreement from the companies who are participating. So we'll get a sense of how they're using these spaces, what's working, what's not. Ideally, the sort of amount of delivery they're able to do and kind of move away from so that we can kind of do calculations on what the potential benefit could be in terms of like shifting away from truck delivery on these residential streets.
And what company is leveraging that one?
So, I mean, what do you mean?
Which companies are on the Upper West Side that are leveraging?
So right now we have, as part of the launch, we have Net Zero Logistics, UPS, and Amazon are the first three companies that are using the sites on the Upper West Side, and then we have a number of other and they're just three of the 8 that responded to the RFP.
Got it. And then has there been any research on how this could potentially impact, like if there's a business right there? So I noticed in some of
Yes.
these, there's.
So before we implemented the sites on the Upper West Side, we did merchant surveys with the local businesses. And we talked to the business owners to find out if there were any issues with delivery, we actually shifted one of the sites up to the other side of the block to allow for kind of necessary deliveries that were needed by a business that like they flagged that conflict for us. We also did a round of kind of general community surveys, of like kind of basically finding, like getting a sense, like what's the word I want to say, intercept surveys. So outside of talking to the businesses, also just talking to residents about like what they're seeing on the street, delivery issues, and kind of socializing the topic with them.
Okay. And then in any of these cases, I guess on the Upper West Side or any of the locations that you're looking at, did you go from like somewhere that was formerly an illegal place that people were already setting up to making that a legal hub? Or,
I mean, to be fair, like that particular neighborhood, it's like there's so much like delivery activity. Like there's so much of that kind of, double parking and transloading in the street happening that like the hope was that this would be a help to kind of minimize that by providing like a specific location. And I think in addition, because it's within, and also like we're doing this in the context of the smart curbs pilot. So we also are testing out some more robust loading zones in that area as well to kind of see if that can shift the overall like challenges with a lot of delivery traffic.
wait, I got two more, sorry.
Oh, it's a follow-up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if, when there is a delivery space, the pilot, delivery spaces, will they still be allowed to do the translations or whatever?
Not-
on the street?
Like we gave them like a radius, I think is it quarter mile?
It's a quarter mile. Yep.
That they're not allowed to do any of that like kind of on street informal transloading. I mean, to be fair, they themselves asked for this. They said, we don't like putting our workers in danger, having them transload sort boxes in the middle of the street, or on a sidewalk where there's all sorts of things happening. So like giving them a specific location. This was something that they asked for in addition to us wanting to kind of curtail that activity for all the reasons mentioned.
Piggyback on the piggyback, and I promise I'll wrap up here soon. Have you all started to think about like if you're going to enforce like a distance between the micro hubs so that like a block doesn't end up with four, I'm exaggerating, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now it's been so case by case, especially if we're thinking about like 20 sites citywide. It's been, and that's including the off-street sites, right? So, really it sort of depends on the needs of the community, on the specific like kind of concerns. Like, so in the case of Community Board 7, because of like we were working within the parameters of that pilot, so they're a little bit closer. But I think the idea is like we're not looking to have them all clustered in one space. Like we would like to kind of allow as broad like geographic participation and distribution as we can get.
I know people are going to hate me, but I'm just going to say, so if you want to like shorten your answers, feel free to give short answers. Two last things. One, in terms of enforcement.
Questions.
I know, well.
He's very thoughtful. You do this sometimes too, Eric.
Okay, I gotta start writing all the AB.
But in terms of enforcement, so, because I actually have a place in mind where they're doing it right now illegally, and it's going to surprise people, but I think it's actually a good location.
Nice.
In terms of enforcement of like the activity there, is that going to be on the NYPD essentially? So like if they become too rowdy for whatever reason, is that an NYPD thing?
It's a combo, right? It's NYPD, but also like if they break the permit agreement, like the clauses in the permit agreement.
Of being like a good neighbor essentially?
If they're not a good neighbor, we can cancel their permit.
Okay.
And kick them out of the program, and and also like, and we have, we have relationships, or we're trying to have like engagement with these companies. And so it's also you know, we're also gonna try to talk to them and say, hey, you know, you guys are trying to do a good thing and you're looking bad. You know, so maybe you should rethink how your workers are behaving at this site.
Yeah. So the location I'm thinking that's currently illegal is on Park Place between Broadway and Church.
Okay.
And that's actually like right across the street from me. So it's, you know, so I'm kind of double staffing that I think it's a good location. I don't know how the Four Seasons folks will feel about that. Or Elizabeth, because she's a neighbor of mine, but I've seen them do it already, and I'm like, oh, this seems like a good location, and there's like a plaza right there. The other thing I was thinking about in terms of the like off street is we've been talking about and kind of complaining back and forth around like under the Brooklyn Bridge where like the cops are parking. Now I know it's harder to get, you know, them moved than not, but that might be potentially a location. So,
That ramp that's over there
Yeah.
that's just used for parking.
yeah,
I know it's slanty, but
yeah,
it's a spot.
Oh, okay.
that's all for me. I won't say anything else on the topic.
All
That's,
right.
that's probably a lie, but yeah.
No, that's very helpful.
Gotcha.
So let's, well, I promised Tammy, and this is CB1 chair, who's gonna speak, she's online.
Oh, excellent.
You can see her.
Super excited for this presentation.
We can't hear
We
you.
can't hear you so good, Tammy.
Let me see what I can do. Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not great. Yell, Tammy, please.
That's good.
No, don't yell.
And see what happens.
Really don't need to. So here's the question.
No, you're coming in now. You're coming in.
No.
Well, you gotta come in person, Tammy.
Is that, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Is that better?
That's good. That's great.
Okay, so super excited. I have a couple questions, as I think I'm a little bit like Brendan on this. But first I'm going to give a comment about underneath the FDR Drive would not be a place that we would necessarily, if we're thinking about what that could be for a future, Community Board 1 did pass a resolution looking to be able to create additional parkland, getting rid of all the parked cars and doing public realm things below there going north. So I'd say let's try and, unless it's near Pier 6 where we clearly need something to support the blue highways, let's be really considerate and careful to not ruin an opportunity to create a parkland that we've been trying to work on for 2 years. That's one. But two, have you in this program looked at any of the private real estate places and opportunities? In particular, I keep thinking of Brookfield, which on the Battery Park City on the West Street side has a driveway that they no longer use, period. End of statement. It's a driveway. It is completely unused. They closed the public space of the building. So it's kind of a perfect jug handle place for a truck to pull in and be able to do things and then pull back out and do last mile delivery in Lower Manhattan. So I don't know if you're looking at, and I guess that's one of the questions, are you looking at any places that are not public streets to have something like this be able to be established?
So unfortunately, private spaces are outside of the scope for the pilot. So we really have to stick to kind of what we have domain over. That said, you know, I think a lot of these, because of the zoning resolution, a lot of companies are looking at private spaces independently of the pilot. And, you know, certainly if there's a space that seems like it has good potential, you know, maybe that's something that, you know, I think also we have to be careful. We can't like officially match make either, but we can, you know, maybe like, you know, keep that in mind if any of the companies come asking about if we've heard of any private spaces. We say, oh, actually, someone brought up this. You guys can now explore that
All right.
further. But
So
that's-
we'd be
Unfortunately,
we'd be
we're
happy.
limited.
Okay,
Oh,
so
go
then my then question becomes, one of the consternations that we have as a community board in, especially in Lower Manhattan, is the amount of streets that have been privatized in terms of security. Security says it has to be closed. Security says. So is this an opportunity and a thing that we could partner with DOT to take a look at and say, well, this street is potentially closed for general traffic. And therefore, maybe this makes a good sense because it's going to have to clear security anyway to come through and do that. And there are lots of places I can think of, for example, by the federal buildings on Duane, that's a closed street. So, and would it be helpful if we as a committee and a board looked at opportunities and asked the wider community board and said, hey, let's talk about it. Let's send a list of locations that we think could be viable to you.
We would love that. That would be so fantastic.
Careful what you wish for.
Mhm.
I mean, we had like a tentative, like we've been exploring some sites, but honestly, like we really want to hear it. Like if you all know this is your neighborhood, you all know this space so well. You're gonna know the ins and outs, the things that like we're not gonna catch on a day to day. So, if you have spaces that you feel like this has got a lot of potential, please look into that. That's super helpful for us.
I think for us, I'd rather take a look and have a discussion as a community board because I know that we want to be able to be in a space and look at both the larger delivery system, but also, where do we have closed roads and what could they be adaptively reused as? And if this is one of those uses, then that makes, and Kate and I probably had this conversation maybe an hour and a half ago about, what are other opportunities? This does seem like a really good, maybe in one location or two, to take a look at what we're talking about, which would then get the trucks off the main road, off and away from other things, and provide a safer space to do distribution out of without having to compromise pedestrians and bicycles. So the goal, obviously, getting them out of the bike lanes, off the sidewalks, and not impactful. So that would be my hope as a community board, that we could maybe coordinate that and send that to you. And if so, what's your deadline?
I mean, I think that if so to get on so I would say like in terms of actually implementing and like kind of doing the physical, like getting the paint down, the delineators and all of that, like for it to be this year, like it would have to be quick. For the kind of, but I think that because we're talking like, we would need to do the construction before the end of the season, so like get it on the list for
Quick as in like weeks or 1 month is okay?
a month.
Okay.
Yeah, a month like would be, I think, doable. And that would, and certainly if there's sites that we've already kind of been looking at and internally discussing and they overlap with what you suggest, then that's even better. And we're like, okay, this is a match, the community is interested in this, we're interested in this, we've already, like, our teams already think this is a good location, the companies are really interested in this location, so let's move it forward. So that, I think that would be like an ideal scenario.
Awesome. And have you outreached at all to NYPD potentially for some of their closed streets, or Port Authority, or any of those locations?
We have not reached out to NYPD or Port Authority for their closed streets and specifically. So, yeah, yeah, I think it might be.
It's a black box.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is a black box. I get that. All
I mean,
right, so
we can certainly we can ask.
and then lastly, so Ed Pinkar would kill me for asking and saying this, but y'all have some nice parking lot space underneath the Brooklyn Bridge that some Gotham Park is interested in getting back, and we understand that you need it for construction, et cetera, but maybe you can share your own parking lot space.
By example.
Yeah.
I mean, we've put out those conversations too, and I think, as you all know, it's like sharing, getting people to share is hard, like, but I think it's, everything's on the table and we've definitely reached out. I think with like some of the off-street stuff where it's a little bit more complicated is, so there are DCAS leases often involved, even when it's like a city is assigned to it. There's these kind of layers of coordination that go into play, and so that sorting through that, and sometimes like if you can't really share because it's like it's been leased for X purpose for these storing these specific vehicles, etc. And so
I
that
hear you, and that's why I say lead by example. You have a fantastic parking lot. And with that I will be quiet.
okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for the suggestions.
Laura?
Oh, hi, thank you. I have a few quality of life questions. Are these just for non-refrigerated trucks, as opposed to the trucks that idle and make a lot of noise?
I mean, the most of this is package delivery,
Okay.
so I don't know, like it's not food delivery, so the
Okay.
chances are we're not gonna have, but like it doesn't, we haven't excluded refrigerated trucks from the.
So none of the 8 are.
They're like they're parcel delivery.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
so
because the
it's like
food ones can be really noisy. That's one thing.
yeah.
Then another quality of life thing is I've noticed a lot of pot smoking around these hubs, and like I know it's hard to regulate, but I don't know if in the RFP or something you can somehow put that in there that that's prohibited.
I mean, so it's a permit, it's not an RFP.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, I think it's kind of,
Probably already illegal to smoke while you're on the job.
yeah, I don't think.
But people do.
Yeah.
Like the idea that, that would be, I mean, I think this is a fantastic program. I really applaud it. I'm just, trying to imagine the reality of it rolling out and like not wanting, like, I live on Duane Street and there's a lot of delivery trucks that already park here. And I don't mind that, except like when my street smells like marijuana all day.
Well, I think that the good thing, I guess, about having it as part of the formal pilot is that these sites are going to be monitored, right? So like if that's a common activity among the delivery workers who are like, walking the carts or on the cargo bikes, which it shouldn't be, but let's say it is, because let's be real, we're in New York City, you will have eyeballs on the site, so we're telling their bosses and their bosses' bosses what's going on, and they'll have to kind of clean up their act. So in
Right.
that sense, it can kind of help, even if it's not like written into the like agreement, like the fact that it's part of a pilot and it's going to have eyeballs on it. And that the company is like aware that this is how they're presenting themselves to the community. I think all of that will hopefully
That's
help.
good. And then my third thing is I think in one of the pictures from the Upper West Side that you showed, it looked like there was actually a street tree sort of integrated into the parking area. And I think it would be really great if over time, like there could be trees planted and things that like start to add to the urban design of these things, which I know this is just the pilot stage. I'm just planting the idea of planting the trees.
That's a beautiful idea. I mean, like that these could be even more multi-purpose and like serve our like rainwater
yes,
capture,
exactly.
like
So,
urban greening. I mean, that would be
yeah,
very cool. I think that's definitely
it's
let's
out
just get
there.
through the hurdle of let's get
Yeah.
through these 3 years, prove the concept, figure out what
Oh,
works.
it's
build
very,
it
very
out.
exciting. And that's why I dropped into this committee. I really wanted to hear about this. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
I have one more thing when you guys are done.
So from the pictures you showed, it looked kind of small, the area. So they're supposed to bring in like a box truck and then they would offload.
Yep.
Okay, it didn't seem that there was enough space, like, from looking
I
at
mean,
it.
this is what this is the space they said that they could, that it would need. So in the sense that it's about 80 to 100 feet. So we're talking about four parking spaces generally. Some of them are, if it's a truck, like a box truck to hand carts, it's usually it will be a smaller model. Whereas if it's a box truck going to a e-cargo van or a larger kind of cargo bike, it might be more of that 100 feet. I think the smallest one is maybe 60 feet. But the idea is really to test out what are these different, how can we get, what are the different designs we can accommodate? What, are there ways that we can balance the community's need for curb access with this particular kind of curb access? And I mean, they said that this is sufficient space. The company said this is sufficient space for what they're trying to do. I mean, this is, again, when we're talking about curbsides, it's they're gonna have maybe a truck, 4 trucks would come in throughout the course of the day. So you'd have 1 truck come in, unload, go away. Maybe that same truck or a different truck comes and unloads later in the day. And so it's not it's a huge truck and then all this package sorting happening and that's the end. It's the idea is to kind of be able to keep it a bit, keep it nimble, and have the and not I mean, and just the reality of our streets. We don't want large trucks, so it's bring your box truck, let it unload. If you need to come back, that's fine, but you're doing it in this one area instead of having your box truck go through all of our residential streets.
Okay, now I'm concerned that with the unloading and whichever vehicle that it's, micro mobility vehicle that's put on, they're gonna do whatever is easiest and lightest. Look, it's hard work. I'm
Right.
not belittling that. They're gonna bring it as close, and it might not be so orderly as it shows on the picture. That it's gonna be as many that they can, the closest to wherever the lift gate is and the least amount of distance, because the picture, it looked like the bikes would be parked here and the truck is here. It's not gonna be so orderly. It'll be like a hub of activity. So I'm really concerned that this will be a constant annoyance to the neighbors. I don't want this initially, my initial feeling is I don't want this where people live. That's why I was saying the FDR, but it should be places that there's sufficient space, distance, because I didn't hear that there were clear guidelines preventing this activity at night.
So, right, it's we don't, we're open to it happening at night if needed, though we can work with, we can within the, as we give out the permits, we can, there's opportunity to kind of work through specific sites. If there's specific restrictions that might need to be in place. The other thing, is that we're not looking at residential streets, we're looking at commercial streets. So these would be, there might be residential above whatever the business is, but these are, we're not looking to site these on we don't want the trucks on our tiny, small residential corridors. So we're gonna keep them in the areas where they're already going on these commercial corridors, and we're gonna try to get that other mode, the hand carts or the bikes or the electric vehicles going onto the residential streets.
But with the change of zoning or what's permissible, I mean, there's residential everywhere now. So I'm concerned that the private companies, they're gonna do what they need to do, and they're gonna be innovative. That's why I think Laura mentioned about refrigeration. They're gonna bring refrigeration. I've ordered food, frozen, cold, so they're gonna do that too. We're gonna hear their refrigerate, their coolers running.
Yeah.
Also, will there be facilities for them? If you're gonna have delivery people congregating there, they're gonna need to.
Yeah.
Have
So I think that right now, I mean, I think down the road, we have thought about, for the off-street sites, definitely we're interested in trying to allow them to have, say, a you know, some sort of, porta potty or like, you know, just like kind of like an office, like trailer type space, like is possible. But I think for the on-street, you know, you know, it's right of way. We're looking at like, we did originally when we were looking at kind of the initial like site explorations, we were trying to align with, say, parks with public bathrooms and other sorts of things. Like, I think right now it's, you know, they'll have to patronize local businesses, I guess, to use the bathrooms. I mean, that's,
It's a burden.
yeah.
It's gonna work
It's,
out.
But,
it's already, they're already out.
I mean, they're out there, exactly.
Have you done any research to know, like, will this reduce overall miles traveled by trucks?
I mean, yes,
And do you have
that's,
a number for that or an idea of what that looks like?
Huma, do we have the latest, number
Check
of
this somewhere.
on the like, estimated potential BMT reduction? I know we had done some initial calculations on that, but I think part of it's a little hard because like, this is like there's not a lot of precedent for this. So like, in a way, we have to like put it in the ground and test it to get that calculation.
Mhm.
But the idea is that, yes, like we're looking to, reduce truck.
Yeah.
Yes, we're looking to like reduce truck VMT by shifting, by basically like allowing that last leg of the journey to be by a vehicle other than a truck. That's an ideal, and like that would be sustainable.
Sorry, my
This is a-
video froze, but I don't know if Catherine, you said this, but our initial estimates from the companies we'd started talking to was about 4 trucks per microhub per day.
Yeah, but I think in terms of like VMT reduction, Huma, like in terms of like on those residential streets, like, so I guess this would be like, if you think about it, at least those 4 trucks would not be circulating our residential streets, like they would be going to this one site, so, but I don't know, we can like try to follow up with VMT, and certainly that's something we'll be getting through.
Yeah, that's something we're trying to collect, but certainly don't have that data, obviously, given that this is new.
Does the contract prevent this company from keeping a truck there for storage?
Yes,
Meaning,
yes,
like if they want to keep it there just
They're not allowed,
2 hours, it's just unload and go?
yes, they're not allowed to like store, like the truck is not supposed to be parked there all day. I mean, in the sense of like it not being in like use for transloading. So like if if the truck is there, it should be part of like the transloading work. It shouldn't just be parked there.
Is there a market for the reverse? If instead of just accepting deliveries, would they be accepting packages to deliver out?
So some of the private companies we've talked to, are kind of interested in that. And there's been some initial talk about partnering with our Locker NYC, pilot and like trying to like create some synergies with that. But I think that's very, like, I don't think anything is, like, I think we're just trying to like get this initial thing tested and then think about like how we can layer things and
Because
scale things.
I'm thinking that's where these entrepreneurial companies will say, we have the space, so why should it go only one way? It should go the other way.
Well, one would think with FedEx. But they do pickups as well as drop-offs.
Right, okay, I support the off-site. I have hesitation with on-site because especially in Lower Manhattan, everything is so
Yeah.
dense. If we had wide open streets, large
Mhm.
sidewalks or a median on a road, that would be fine, but
But what if it's like, what about like a commercial corridor where there's already just a lot of noise from the restaurants and other like commercial like
I
use?
have another one to be
Yeah.
up anyway.
Yeah.
Let's get back to Tammy and let her. finish
Okay,
this.
sorry, thank you.
But, so I just don't want any more noise.
Oh,
That-
okay.
Look at it that way, we already have so much, I don't wanna add to it, especially when it's commercial activity, movement of things and trucks.
Okay. Fair.
Tammy?
Okay. So I want to understand a little bit more and have a greater dialogue on the rules, right? That's a lot of what you're hearing about quality of life concerns, but there's something that's kind of unsaid, unmet. We have a lot of experience with the parking permits that DOT has given out, specifically in terms of parking permits for pickup and drop off for tour buses. There is absolutely no enforcement, period, full stop, I mean, there is absolutely
Mhm.
nothing. And so creating a system, I think, that actually does not have a better sense of checks and balances with enforcement is a problem. And what I mean by, let's just say you have your 7 companies, right? And Huma has given 3 of them permits for Lower Manhattan, but the other 4 only have them for Upper Manhattan. They want to deliver in Lower Manhattan, so they're just going to come by. Their name's not on the sign, and they say, "But I have my permit. I'm allowed to drop off. This is a zone. See, it's a zone." Right? Or anyone else. There is no, within this system, there has to be a way to encourage people to have good behavior. And that I think is a problem because we don't have any of that with tour buses. And I don't have
Mhm.
any kind of rulemaking, regulation, follow-up that leads to enforcement. You know, you could get 100 tickets and it's just the cost of doing business. And that's what we've seen as part of the problem that we're trying to solve here, right? We don't want people unloading in the middle of the street. We don't want them loading on congested streets. But the question starts to become, how many tickets do they get before they lose their right to unload in the zones? Right? And if they are not using the zone that they're permitted for, let's say they're permitted on my street and I have a nice little setup at the end of the road there that they're supposed to be doing, they're not allowed to be permit and running at like 1 o'clock in the morning because it's a residential neighborhood. How many tickets do they get before they lose their permit because they're a bad actor? And then they say, oh, wow, we've gotten complaints at this hour, so we're just going to go around the block and park in front of Jess's house. Right? Because I can't be in this zone between midnight and 7 a.m. So I'm just going to go around the corner. And how many tickets do they get there before it impacts what's going on? And I'm not looking for a police state. I'm just looking for a way that when you're doing rulemaking, that you're finding a way to encourage the best possible behavior that goes with the idealistic vision of how it should work. Because we know how it doesn't work in many other instances. You cannot assume that NYPD is staffed well enough to be able to ticket and know everything. And once it's done, if the enforcement has no follow-up and representation back to DOT, then all you hear is the community complaining. And all I think of is that's goes part and parcel with event permits, tour bus parking. I mean, these are the kind of things that I'm thinking of that come back to us a lot for quality of life issues that have no follow through enforcement follow up. So what have you done in the planning of this pilot to address those issues?
So, one of the, like, I guess the first thing, as I had mentioned earlier, is that it's like one company per site. So that also helps the company then has a kind of skin in the game in terms of their own self-enforcement. So if another company is randomly using their site, they can take it up with that other company. And now you have both NYPD and the company kind of engaged in enforcing the problem behavior. You also, there's like visual designation, right? It's more than just a street sign. We have like the kind of visible, like, separated out, like transloading area. And, we haven't, we like modeled this in after the, car share pilot program. And so kind of really thinking about how they have like gotten those spaces to like reduce illegal parking within their spaces. So like having kind of more visual cues. We talked about potentially putting some paint down to designate the area where the truck would be, but there was concerns about how much that paint would last given the truck traffic. So that's something that if we see problems, we can also potentially incorporate that as like an added level of this is really like not meant for you to randomly park here. Beyond that, I think also just within the permit mechanism itself, if you have a company, it's not like, oh, you get a ticket. It's like, if you break your permit, then you're out of the pilot. You don't
But
get to participate.
how do you know? How are you getting the information? How is that set up and how many times? Is it 1 ticket, 2 tickets, 10 tickets? How, I don't mean to be persnickety about it, but at the end of the day, we have been told numerous times, DOT is not enforcement, right?
Right.
That is not the role that DOT plays. And so what we need DOT to do with the rollout is figure out what the consequences are, because you are the agency that gives the permit. And if you withdraw the permit, what are the qualifications that deem withdrawal? And how does the public understand this?
Can I jump in here, Catherine? Tammy, this is a good question, and it's true. We're not officially enforcement, but because we've created a pilot that requires an agreement and a permit, we now have the ability to do somewhat of enforcement. And one of the ways that we're monitoring, which I think is what you're asking, is how are we keeping track of their behavior, is we are requiring them to share data. And we also have a partnership with an educational firm who's going to help us monitor. We're going to put up cameras. We have our own staff that will go and check on the spaces. And one of the things that I want to emphasize is the reason we're only starting with 8 companies is so that we have the capacity to monitor a small number of businesses with a small number of spaces and make sure it works before we grow this program. So emphasizing this is a pilot. We have to test a concept. It is new. It may not work, but we want to start small and make sure, and the companies we're working with, we have strong relationships with. We have contacts that I can honestly text at this point. So we're building it at a very small level so we can make sure we get it right before we do anything big.
Can you please, Huma, in that plan include public? How does the public engage with the conversation?
Mhm.
Because much like I said, they're, responding to the concerns around the room about being in a residential neighborhood. If you do not allow, for example, them to be there between midnight and 7, because it's a residential neighborhood, or 11 to 7, whatever it is, but they are there.
So
You're
Catherine brought this
asleep.
up. Yeah, Catherine brought this up on the sign. There's a high level sign and then there's a pedestrian level sign. And on that sign is a QR code. So anyone from the public can scan the code and provide the feedback. So we will be monitoring that. So that's the way for public to immediately tell us if they're seeing things they don't want to see.
Can
All
you
due respect,
please,
we're an hour and 15 minutes in.
can you please get something for 311 versus just a scan code? Because I don't see people walking outside at 11:30, 12 o'clock at night to scan the sign.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And yes, there'll be a 311 code too.
It's been here for a while, so it's.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make, everything I had has been asked and answered. The only thing I want to say is that if the committee is that it should be at a committee level, not conversations in advance of the committee to decide like what are good sites and all of that. So if we really want to tackle this, then we as a group should have a task force or something that comes back next month, that we actually walk the neighborhood, give us the design criteria, tell us the 3 sites you've already thought about, and let a small group of us walk the neighborhood and come back with some concrete solutions. Otherwise, we're not going to make any progress. So progress, not perfection.
Can we say sites that don't work?
No, why don't we put that? What, because I think let's go a month where we put in the recommendation of sites and those that we certainly don't want can be part of that same conversation and come from CB1 at that time.
Yeah.
My question was going to be,
Oh, today, sorry.
the Battery Park City Authority has already asked for something like these kinds of loading micro hubs. So I'm not going to badmouth the on-site because I know that's exactly what they're asking for. And they have construction people from Arup who are actually doing the planning. And they want to get it done before they get into the resiliency and onward. But anyway, is the committee ready, or would they like to do a resolution in favor of the concept?
Do we need to?
It'd be very helpful.
Something
Why
when we
wouldn't
said
we
we
wait?
liked it.
Well, yeah, why wouldn't we just wait till next month and express our support and suggest locations?
We can do that. Do you have the resolution? If I drafted one, I only, therefore be it resolved. You can see that I think you're reading more into it than I'm asking.
Betty, I wouldn't do that until we go through the whole thing because we should include specific sites that we're recommending. Not just a
Then we
holistic,
better
hey,
sense of what-
Okay.
Then we have a better sense of what the
That's-
citing criteria are before we do that.
Like, I thought we
Okay.
had, didn't we have something that, this isn't the first time
No.
we've seen this.
No, we're talking about.
No, things that not as specific as the,
Yeah,
from my
Okay,
comments.
because I think we saw this in like 2021.
yeah, we're talking
We
about
did,
last month.
it's related to that, but it's slightly different.
So we're gonna hold. and-
But yes, if we're gonna wait the month for the sites, that's fine, and we'll do that over email with who wants to be involved and what's going to be involved with it, because I'm gonna have to talk to Tim to figure out what we're going to do, so let's leave that for now, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Because it's been, you can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate like all of your engagement and feedback. I mean, this is what this is all about.
We are nothing if not engaged.
We love giving feedback.
When we deal with the resolution.
Give me the
with the
QR
site.
codes.
Feel it.
Sign in.
Thank you.
Okay,
Let's go on to the second item.
Thank you
And
for
this actually
some time.
talks about commercial e-bikes, only because that's kind of where
30
the
minutes of questions.
That's where the committee was at the end of the last session. Nevertheless, the laws that we're gonna look at, as you can see, are not restricted to that. And I promised that I would. For the people who said, well, you've read all these and know where they are, but we don't, so we want to make sure we get to see them. Here they are. I want to let people know, in case they're not familiar with it, INT is for intro, and that tells you it's a city legislation. That's what city council uses. The A and F and the next ones are for the Assembly and the Senate. They're companion bills because they must pass at the state level, both houses, which is what, so I just grouped them together rather than treating them as two different laws. Shortcutting a lot of bills into very little. Why is the city bill here? Couple of reasons. One, you can still consider it. I think state was a big decision made last time, makes sense. In fact, the Assembly 339A with the Senate 2599. A at the end means that there's an amendment that's been made. And there's only one amendment because it goes up with the alphabet as more and more amendments are made. So one amendment's been made. So now you know what those things mean when you see them all the time. But they copy the rules, the law, the legislation from the city. 606 is the same that you're going to see in this first statement. Okay, so they are looking at every bicycle, every electric scooter, really everything that isn't listed with the DMV, only at the state level now they can be with the DMV, and would be issued a license. Because the city can't, they can issue tags but not licenses. Well, this is also known as Priscilla's Law. And why I hesitated last month was because some people call the city law 606 Priscilla's Law. Why? Because it's the same exact wording as with the state law, uses Priscilla's Law as kind of its subname. They're the same thing. The other one, the last one, was written by Siegel Harman, yes. Siegel Harman, he's the state senate. And this one is for the commercial purposes used. And involves the employers with violations. That is the big difference between the second and the third item that you see here on this list. Under the next one.
Sorry, quick question. For the second one, for the assembly one, there's an A there. Does that mean that that was amended, or is that just part of the?
No, whenever there's a letter at the end of any numbers, that means an amendment.
So since that's not at the end.
yes.
It is assembly.
Okay.
That's why I put the
So
period
here.
here. I didn't put the year on 2599, which was in fact 2020.
Oh, got it. Okay.
I put 2025 on this first one, which is true, but in fact, you're going to see it given by many speakers under the 2023 number, because every time it's reintroduced, depends where they are on the docket with what number is issued. So they don't keep the same number from year to year when they reintroduce, which is so confusing to me. So in this case, I put this as a 2025 number. In other cases, I'm going to show it to you linked with the same Senate number because it's from the 2023. When it had a different number, but it's the same one,
Okay, so the 1 million or more registered.
which is all in New York City.
Yeah, that's the thing, because it seems like it could, like the reason you would want to register and license these vehicles should be the same across the board.
Oh, well, there are two things that are kind of weird. One, the Senate bill has this where it's strictly New York City, but has a cities over 1 million. It also has a weird little proviso of people over 62 don't have to pay for the license.
But
I don't know. Anyway, the Assembly bill and the old Senate bill did not have either of those things in. But, yeah, yes.
Tammy has her hand raised.
Wait, let's get Mitch. because
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
done with
Can I
it.
just, if you can just verify, if I make sure I'm reading it right, the first bill 0606,
Yes,
there's no license plate attached to that one?
the city can't issue a license plate.
And that's okay.
But the DOT has a plate with a number on it.
Yeah, it's,
Because I see that a license plate in the other two laws,
They're state.
the other two bills. So that's what I'm saying. I don't see the word like, I'd have a license plate attached. I just have that fixed identifying number, so I'm just not sure if it's this.
No, it's at the end of the bill you're talking about, the city.
It's functionally a
DOT
license.
with a fixed identifier
Right,
number.
but is that gonna be the same size as the license plate, which would make it easy for somebody to report like an accident?
Actually later, because the number comes up in the testimony.
And they leave the design of it to the.
No, it is specified, it already exists. These are existing rules. And the exact dimensions are written coming up soon.
Okay.
Well, he hasn't seen the phone. But anyway, you and then Tammy.
Yeah, I support the middle one, the 2599A. And there needs to be registration and licensing. People need to know what the rules of the road are when they're operating in New York City streets. It doesn't say anything about children though. Like, what about somebody who's 17 or 16 and operates an e-bike? Is that,
Yeah, they're included.
so,
you can get a driver's license at 16.
Yeah.
Under 16 is a different group. but
Let's
children.
get through the
Yeah,
explanation.
children.
All the slides.
So some of these things are going to be answered if you just let me get them.
Move through and then ask questions.
Oh, but Tammy had her hand up and I.
I feel like we're pretty much on the same page.
Let's let Tammy go.
All right, Tammy, go ahead unless you want to wait.
Can't hear you.
I'm gonna let Betty get through it all and then put my hand back up because I have a funny feeling she might answer my question, so I'm just gonna be patient.
Okay, yes. No, I anticipate a lot of these questions because I had them myself. Anyway, these are all taken from testimony that were given to city council. Why there was a hearing on December 11th of last year. I remember the date that it was. And they were speaking to multiple bills related to the same thing, including Intro 606. But they spoke about a resolution that was going up for one of the state bills that we're going to look at, which was the third one on the list. They dealt with a lot of things, so I have testimony for really everything we're talking about tonight from it. But anyway, this was the most direct one, and this is from the borough president of Brooklyn. And I want you to hear I picked ones only because they had comments that were information that I couldn't have provided, and I learned from them. So I thought maybe you'd be interested. It does conflate the different classes of vehicles, which is confusing, which is why he's against it. They also, because it's all motor vehicles and devices, it includes scooters like mine. It would include wheelchairs, electric wheelchairs. It's written very, very sloppily. It includes things that they didn't intend to publicly do. Well, no, but anyway, the bill has these various issues with it. They also kind of threw in mopeds if they were electric, which doesn't make sense because since then, a law was passed that they are motor vehicles, clarifying that, and they have to have licenses, so. He was dealing with many of those issues. Many restaurants, this was someone from the Hospitality Alliance, which was interesting to me, talking about food delivery, hiring third parties, and the rules that they already exist in New York City. And you do have restaurants that employ their own, so besides the deliveristas, you have those that work directly for restaurants, which he is speaking up for. Current regulations. They have a unique 3-digit ID that has to be displayed on the back of their person. You see it on the various jackets that they wear. There is also a distinct form for each bicycle that is affixed either to the rear of the bicycle seat, or both sides of the delivery basket. If you want to know where to look for it, this is the end of the second paragraph. So there's already 2 numbers that confuse people. One of them on the deliveries to themselves or the delivery worker, one on the bicycle itself. All this going on. And so their complaint is, now you're adding yet another number for people to deal with, and this, he's saying it's unfair to the group he is representing. We know who they are. Next. Testimony. This one, there is a current law that you have to complete a commercial bicycle safety course. So as far as commercial bicycles are concerned, this is already included. It's not for average everyday people, but nevertheless, I was not aware this existed already. It does. Okay, and you can see here the metal or plastic sign is 3 by 5 inches. Because, so Mitch, that's the answer to your question. The one that currently exists. And this is probably not DOT, this is one that's issued, I don't know whose requirement. Oh, no, it is DOT requirement. It's 3 by 5 inches.
Do you have a sample?
Your iPhone?
Well, if they use your iPhone.
No, I'm just saying the size.
Well, it's like most index cards.
A bicycle, a license plate would be much larger than 3 inches by 5 inches, correct?
Yeah, I'm just answering your
Well,
question.
not on
That's the
a,
size.
not on like,
Bicycles and scooters and things are much smaller.
3 by 5.
yeah,
That
like,
was not measurable.
but the one on my motorcycle.
If you're like a half a block away after you hit somebody, not you personally, then nobody's gonna see that.
Or you're not gonna see it anyway.
Yeah.
People don't catch my cars. People don't catch my
The one on, the one on my motorcycle is like good enough for the cameras to see.
Okay.
I get charged, so.
I was gonna say that's the issue, is they're looking at the automated,
Okay.
but anyway. Everyone has their own opinion, and I'm not saying don't have them.
These were, the 3 by 5 is for existing DOT, right?
Yes,
That's like a.
DOT that already exists
Index.
for
It's like
commercial.
smaller
bicycles.
pictures that you
Mine
could have gotten
mine is like-
from
This person was, let me go back to,
20 years
or
ago.
forward, whichever way, Dutch X, remember they were with Empire Clean Cities, they were the ones who came and spoke from those cargo bikes. And they were, again, talking about intro 606, and talking about, and they reiterate, it's a 3 by 5 inch. So they're asking, what does 606 do that doesn't already exist anyway, for commercial bikes at least? Next. I want you to know those redundancies.
This is the-
This is by Disabled in Action, which is one big group of people with disabilities. And it's kind of, very interesting is what they worry about or don't worry about. They assume it's a safety problem, you know, that they're not an issue and not going against that. But they're saying the piece of metal means nothing if nobody's enforcing it anyway. They're also saying that with age limits, there's other things that none of these bills would deal with anyway, which is enforcement. So, limited usefulness. And this is testimony of ADAPT, which is a consortium of disability groups. And if you look at the second part of theirs, they're going after the sloppiness of 606 and anything like it, which was one state law, so kind of looks at, is the wheelchairs get kind of swept up into the law because of the terminology that they use and all other e-devices. Well, e-devices are a lot of us. So they have some suggested underlined words that would be added to legislation that we passed. So, and resolution 224. This is again, it's backing, here's the old numbers for the Senate and the Assembly for the commercial bicycle bill. You notice this is with a switch in the numbers. This is because it's a 2023 number for that particular law. And this is City Council asking, whenever there's a bill in the state that only applies to New York City, they really expect the City Council to pass a resolution. They can't pass a law. They can pass a resolution saying, hey, City Assembly, hey, City Senate and Governor, pass this and sign it. Because we want it, we approve of it. So that's what this resolution is, support city council for this grouping of legislation. This is State Senator Hoyleman Siegel, as I said, is the sponsor for this particular bill. Again, he's giving the old numbers too, not the 325 numbers. And the reasons why they're going after the commercial e-bikes, why they should be the target. Because they are the biggest group up there for a couple of reasons. They cover all the deliveries, they cover all of the cannabis deliveries, they cover a lot of people, and all the commercial cargo bikes. And go on to the resolution next. Oh, yeah, transportation alternatives, houses, resolution 224, which shows you they're not for even licensing commercial e-bikes at this time. Well, you have to hear both sides, so you know.
But why,
But-
they don't say why, though, they just say. that they-
Well, there are lots of reasons, basically going after and what can happen. Look what's happening now with the policing that's going on in Tidbit, giving tickets to people who are minority groups. And
What do you mean arresting? Right, or, okay.
How
I'm
about
not sure,
ice
but-
sweeps or not that?
But
Yeah,
with people who
Yeah.
tend to be biased against in the first place, that have big repercussions when they get ticketed.
yeah, I get that, but I also think that like if we were being completely fair with how we share the streets with each other, we would.
Transportation alternatives is, I mean, this is their position, which is why I make it clear
Yeah,
who it is.
I see.
Okay, next. And why they do it. The New York City DOT, they actually were against 606 as well. They didn't like it. And I want to keep in mind, if the DOT was going to, and this is why I think we went to state anyway. If the city was going to do it, the DOT estimated about $9 million for the first 4 years to run this mini DMV within the New York City DOT, which is a big reason that they're not for it. And they also talk about it. NYPD has all the power they need to do enforcement. So these bills would do nothing to change that. In fact, this came out in New York, came out in the press today. I had to copy this before I packed everything up to come here. If you look at the last paragraph here, criminal summonses, because the new quality of life division that the commissioner of the NYPD set up, and how they're going to do those laws and enforce those laws now. One of the big ones is street safety from e-bikes and scooters. Look at the last one, what they are specifically targeting. They are utilizing 6 specific violations for e-bikes that the NYPD is going after. Those are ticketing for reckless driving, operating under the influence, driving against traffic, failure to obey traffic controls devices like red lights and stop signs. Which I think is a pretty good representative of the things that people have been complaining about that are the most dangerous.
That's the law
that-
now, right? And that's what they're allegedly going to start enforcing,
Excuse
right?
me, Justine, when you recognize, please wait. And that's why this is in the press right now, and Mimi and I were talking about this when you arrived. This is opening up a whole bunch of problems because these charges are criminal charges. And while they can't take you to jail for them, they do report them to ICE and other groups, which is putting these people at great risk. It's looking as if they broke a criminal law, where if you're driving a car and get a ticket, it's not a criminal summons.
Right.
You don't have to go to criminal court and show up in person. So the bicyclists are treated way, way more severely in a car, bus, or truck driver that does the same thing.
Could it be amended to, so it's less?
Well, that's another issue, and this is so new. But in fact, the head of the Transportation Committee of City Council, Sylvina Brooks Hughes, thank you. She has said she's gonna hold a hearing over this. They were kind of shocked that nobody went to City Council. The NYPD has moved on this unilaterally. Okay, keep that in mind. We'll address it potentially next month, but let's see what City Council does. Maybe I'll resolve. Okay, so next. Yeah, again, the third-party delivery apps, everyone's going after them, saying they need to play a role, have some skin in the game, which the city and the other state one don't even take that in. As pointing out the last one for the commercial, they start to involve the employers to have some skin in the game.
Hmm.
Next. And so that people don't accuse them of things that are in separate legislation that we can talk about or not talk about in the future. But nevertheless, they don't belong in these bills because they're separate bills. For instance, in the Senate, they're hearing about increasing the penalties for leaving the scene of an accident involving an electric scooter. In the second one, they're looking at making class 3 e-bikes, which are the ones that can go up to 25 miles per hour. Class 2 are also throttle, but they max out at 20 miles per hour, which are compatible with our speed limits. These others are not. Anyway, they would like to have them reclassified as mopeds, not make them e-bikes, and let them live by the rules of the DMV. And that's another one we can look at in the future if you'd like to. There's also one that establishes bicycle lane. If I want to just pick on the bicycles here. There's a safety program to enforce restrictions for who can use the bicycle lanes.
Hmm.
And protecting them with photo devices. Because there's been such a problem of mopeds and others using it. So to protect that. Next. State legislature, yes. They've been really busy. This will require a transparent process for the deactivation. One of the problems that has been said that the deliveries just go so fast is that they're given long distances to travel and they can't turn down orders. They also have time limits on making them. So, and they're deactivated as a threat if they don't accept them. So there are 2 bills currently pending in the state level, looking at changing and leveling out the playing field on those. So it is being addressed, and we can certainly look at those as well. But it doesn't belong in this law as we're talking about for this purpose, because it is being addressed otherwise. And I wanted people to know that. Next. Yeah, just having liability insurance. Again, that is also being looked at. And that can also be dealt with, so that's why it's also not in these bills. As far as the people writing the bills, they know it's being looked at elsewhere. Even though the city council bills, this would have that e-scooters and e-bikes that are part of the self-share, so not privately owned ones, but those have to have a speedometer. And again, how can you ticket someone going too fast when they have no idea what speed they're going? But if class 3s that are legal are made mopeds, they would need a speedometer anyway. And the class 2s can only go 20 miles per hour, which is legal on all the streets in New York City anyway. But anyway, this is a bill that's being looked at. Next. So your thoughts regarding registration, and Justine, you can go first, and then Mimi, she's in the room with her hand up. But Justine, since I rudely interrupted you, you can go first. But I can't hear you. Can't hear you. Justine, you're on mute. Let's let Mimi go and Justine work on your microphone.
In addition to licensing, I think all of them should be licensed. I don't think it matters how many people live in whatever city there is. Because they'll be used on the road no matter what. I think that they should be inspected for safety. There are vehicles on the road and they need to be inspected for safety. Are we all distracted by the music?
Well, it's not mine, I don't know.
I certainly wouldn't have that.
Is that mover in that direction?
Can't hear you. Let's let Justine work on that.
Mitch, go ahead.
I can see.
I figured it out when you're ready, but I'm waiting.
She's been waiting.
Okay, go ahead, Justine.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that. I couldn't find the mute button. I actually just had some questions. The slide that was about the quality of life enforcement, you talked about the 6 violations. That's the law now that they're trying to enforce with this new task force or something?
No.
Is that it? No, tell me what that was. I didn't understand.
Wait a second. The laws are all there. The NYPD can do whatever they want. What the NYPD Commissioner Tisch has announced is that she has created these new, quality of life teams
Yeah.
amongst the NYPD. They are to enforce and issue criminal summonses for these 6 particular things. So this is her focus. This is not the limitation of the NYPD. It's the focus of the NYPD. And city council was upset with why you're giving them criminal summonses. Why did the NYPD do that without city council discussion or anything else? So that's where that stands at this point.
I see. Okay, and then we talked about insurance for e-bikes, or there's a request for insurance, but it doesn't exist right now, right? Mopeds, motorcycles, they all have to have
Correct.
insurance, but e-bikes do not, correct?
Correct, because they're considered bicycles, not motor vehicles, and motor vehicles have those laws in place. The DMV insists on those things.
Do any of these, I think is it 3 laws that we're looking at, the regulations or resolutions? Any of them talk about insurance or violations or address the 2 things I just questioned about? Or not really, right? We're
No,
just talking about registration.
they're being dealt with separately. So as far as the city or the state are concerned, especially the state, they wouldn't take it too seriously because they know they have this other law they're looking at, which deals specifically with liability insurance.
Thank you.
Mitch, go ahead.
Mitch?
Okay, well, first of all, I just wanted, I mean, I echo your sentiments about the unfairness of the criminal summonses, especially due to the current state of what's happening in the country. But I'm hoping that could be amended if something goes through. After listening to all that stuff, I can see the redundancy and the problems that could happen with 0606. But I do see some validity to Priscilla's law and possibly the lower one of talking about the commercial bikes. The police commissioner Tisch can focus on certain things now that, things happen, come and go, but with, I think with Priscilla's law and the other one underneath it, just naturally, a delivery person would maybe, or a rider would just take a little extra precaution, knowing that they're more visible. But like I said, so I would not be in favor of 0606, but I think that there is some validity to the other 2. And then I would 100% be against the criminalization of what you said.
Well, and let me point out that it's related to both the things you spoke about. If they have a state license plate
Yes.
on them, which these laws would do, they would be subject to red light cameras, which means speeding, and they would be subject to stoplights, running stoplights. So those 2 big laws would be done automatically as they are for motor vehicles, which would be at least one less thing the police could really enforce because in red light areas.
Just was wondering if there's some, it's like, it's almost like there should be some middle ground because it is a problem, but it shouldn't be like brought to the degree of like a car going 40, 50 miles an hour, but it is a problem that shouldn't just be swept away. So I just don't know how there should be some middle ground where, but, so.
It is, but yes, but I mean, that's the advantage of the state laws is the license plate
Okay.
allows them to do the camera laws.
I think we can't overstress enough the difference, the vast difference between the bottom law, state law, and the other 2. Because as you say, one thing is that fundamentally needs to happen is the de-incentivization of bad behavior through, by putting the third-party apps, the other, that to me is where we should have like liability for if the cop stops. I hate to think that, this could be used as a tool of selective enforcement and also put people, especially if they're documented or whatever, put them at risk. I don't know.
Well, keep in mind this last one, this bottom one here. Well, the employer would be responsible for the bill. So the NYPD or a camera gives them a ticket for something, or they're caught for riding on the sidewalk or these others, it's the employer. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah, but as we talked about, I mean, there's nothing that would stop them from passing along, there's nothing to the.
Right, there's manipulation that can be done.
They could use, which they would, if they get a violation, they could like further dock their rating so they get less jobs, like,
right.
They could deactivate them.
they could, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's why the deactivation laws.
But there has to be something in between extreme on either side where, because it has been getting out of hand with safety. You know, and it can't just be like transportation alternatives is just against everything, and then.
Well, they're not against everything, I mean, they're
Well,
for
but
Therefore, our next item.
getting to the,
Therefore, our next item on the agenda.
But that's not related to this.
Yes, it is. Well, it is, but it's
I mean,
different.
I just,
Okay, let's just.
we're just reading what you had brought before, so that's on one side, something needs to be done. Nobody wants, at least nobody in this community wants somebody's, legal status here to be affected by riding on a sidewalk, even though it's frustrating, I mean, so, but it's not like nothing should be done.
I
And
mean,
that is the dilemma.
I've said this before, I don't, sure, something needs to be done. I don't think this would do anything. I mean, first of all, day one of this law, you're gonna have 3% compliance.
And
I mean, this is a massive, all of it, yeah, having the DOT or the DMV issued license plate to the however many millions of bikes there are out there is just a gargantuan
Yeah.
task that's just not gonna happen. Like, let's be realistic. And I don't think it solves the problem. Like, I think we know what the problem
What
is.
about
It's
the
that
third one, then, not pursue this law, but the third?
I don't think that really, I think it's better, but I don't think it solves the problem either. I think that also Hoyleman's bill to actually go at the performance
Is it
criteria.
a step in the right direction, Jesse, the third one?
I just don't think it does anything. I think that we need to get at the performance criteria that is incentivizing people to run red lights and travel
That also,
massive distances. I think the lack of bike infrastructure that we have in the city incentivizes people to run red lights and to
No.
not slow down. I think that's the problem. I don't think just requiring everyone to put a license plate on their bike when city bikes are already registered and
Yeah.
there's most of the bikes we have out there, it's just not gonna do anything.
this city bikes is
Smoke and mirrors.
less of a problem than the electric bikes going like really fast back and forth because there's a money incentive, you know. Anyway, I'll let somebody else speak.
Although, yeah, keep in mind that most of the people who are injured or killed are the operators of those e-bikes.
That's correct.
Overwhelmingly, it is them. So don't think they're doing it on purpose. They're doing it for some reason besides, they know the consequences
The
of that.
financial incentive.
Survival, financial
I
incentive.
understand, so those two things that Jesse said, and what I'm saying, those are not mutually exclusive. Like there's, you know, so, you know, taking away the deactivation, deactivating the deactivation could be a good thing, and then some of this could be a good thing. Together, it's not a be all and end all, but it could be a step in the right direction.
Well,
Let's
Anyway.
reward the people
Yeah,
who are
you-
being polite and raising their hands.
Yeah.
Eric and Cody.
So, this is a beginning. We have to change the mindset of e-bike riders that they have to follow the rules. And the first step is they have to be trained in what the rules are of the road. Like red means stop and, you know, what are the conditions if there's a four-way stop? Who has right of way?
well, the livery system knows have to.
I really don't think they do know. I really
Well,
don't. They don't.
Have to take the course. They know as much as any car
I
driver
don't,
does.
I don't think they do. I haven't taken it. I'll leave that out.
Regulations.
Read it every time.
I really don't think they know all the rules in the road because it changed. When that commercial bicycle course came about, there weren't all these bike lanes and it wasn't the same. Now that the e-bikes are part of, they're motor vehicles. They have a motor, so I'm gonna call them motor vehicles. They're motor vehicles as well. So they need to know the rules of the road because they have to think like a motor vehicle operator because they're sharing the road. It's also for their own safety so that they know the rules that the I don't know, cars and trucks operate. They need to know all the rules. And this is the first step. We have to change the mindset that they have.
them know the rules?
What's that?
How does this make them know the rules?
Because,
How does this make the car driver?
because my part of this is that they have to get registered, they have to
You
know
have to
what the
read
rules.
it, yeah.
That's how I read it.
It doesn't require them to get a driver's license or anything.
But
It
it-
requires them to
But
sign
to
up.
get a
for it.
license, you
Wait.
generally have to pass a test.
Which
right?
one are we
The-
talking about?
I don't think these require like a license, it's just just get a plate.
You would have to take it.
registering the bike.
There's no court, I don't think there's a court.
And have a license plate.
Right, just the plate.
Right, it's registering
Okay, so
the
let's.
plate. It's registering
Inspections,
e-bike,
driver's licenses and registration.
which is why I covered.
I'm sorry, I better.
Okay.
Which is why I
Can we
covered all
have
of
one
the state
conversation
laws.
at once?
Yeah.
So that was my interpretation. I don't know where I got it from, that they would have to have training for it. And I think then if it's not, then I'm saying it needs to be part of it. This is multi-factor for everyone's safety, for all users of the road. And you're right, there isn't, initially there won't be enforcement, but there needs to be enforcement. But before that, they have to know the rules of the road. Then we have to focus on enforcement.
Understood. That's Cody. This is being.
Aren't automobile drivers supposed to know the rules of the road?
No,
And aren't they supposed to follow those rules?
Yes.
Or aren't the police supposed to enforce those rules? No, we have hundreds of people killed every year by automobiles in New York City. We had 200 last year.
That doesn't mean they were breaking the law.
Yeah, but that is not, true, that it doesn't necessarily mean that.
Does that mean you don't do something else?
We're not.
So,
Stay on
enforcing,
topic.
for instance, speed limits in New York City.
let's go on to a really simple issue here. I think this is the end of it.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, it is. Do people want to move forward? 'Cause I mean, there's such a huge diversity, and I was very prepared for this, that there's no real support to coalesce around any one of them. There's no particular enthusiasm, and people want to change things about the bills that really are pointless because there's separate legislation to deal with those issues and to force them into this one. Also, the resolution, why bother? Do we even bother with a resolution? And if so, what do you want? What is the consensus?
Well, I don't think.
Careful.
Sorry, my hands up.
We're in reward.
I say we don't, and here's why. Licensing is not required, which means there's no proficiency requirement. Inspections are not required to make sure that the vehicles are safe. Enforcement has policy implications that I think some of us don't agree with.
Insurance is
And-
not unless the other builders.
Right, and the disincentivizing of bad behavior is not contained in this either. So it doesn't have any of the things that we've all spoken passionately about.
I think that's
So-
true.
Can I just, if hypothetically, if the, if the immigration situation right now in the country was not like it is now, let's say 4 years ago, 4 years ago, there was a different,
Yeah,
9 months ago.
my mind.
okay, I'm just curious
Yeah,
if there
thank you
might
for
be any,
asking.
because that is a real problem, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if that could tip the scales if that wasn't the situation.
Yeah, I don't think, for me, it doesn't, because there's already enough sort of bureaucratic oversight in this process. So I don't know that adding another layer without an enforcement that's reasonable does not.
You don't think human nature, I agree with you, there's almost no, there might not be any enforcement, but knowing that you have that license or something, wouldn't human nature kind of make you, not you personally, be a little more respectful of the speed and the rules of the road?
But you're reading into the bill things that it doesn't.
Let's get Tammy in
Let's
here.
let Tammy speak.
Okay.
Yeah, I was,
Opinion.
Yeah,
Alright.
I don't think she's gonna change her opinion, but.
No,
I'm interested in her opinion.
yes, but I think we're trying to add to this the things it doesn't have.
Okay, thank you.
And
Tammy.
So that was going to be one of the points that I have, is that one of the things we have to get back to is if we're going to support any of these legislations by resolution, it is about what it is and an amendment you might want to ask for, right? We don't know statistics to know every car accident, who was at fault and who was not. We don't know all the statistics because they don't capture that. We don't know the statistics of how many actual bicycle accidents for pedestrians there were because NYPD has loudly said they do not report it. So we don't know all of it. Let's not argue over that past. Let's look and see when we're thinking about policy, what would be a good idea. I don't disagree with anything that I've heard. I think DOT does not have the time, the budget, the anything, and that's not what city DOT is set up with. So that's not what, for goodness sakes, that's not the, they're not license plate makers, right? They're just not. So if we're gonna opine and support, we can certainly say, no, we don't agree with 0606. Yes, we agree with whatever the other two state assembly and Senate bills are. And we can put anything that says conceptually we agree that, in large dense population, like AKA Priscilla's law says, that everyone should be registered with DMV and have a license plate. Arguing over the minutia of what size the plate is, whether it can be seen, really shouldn't be the discussion. It's whether or not we really think that maybe they should be registered. Right? If we have concerns with the next one, that is, I don't think anyone disagrees. We don't want them riding on the sidewalks, right? But, yeah, that'd be great if they had license plates. Would it be good for them to be registered with DMV? I think as we look ahead, if you got to register a motorcycle, you should have to register the e-bikes that are going sometimes as fast. The speed limit downtown is 25 to 30 miles an hour, sometimes less than 25. You're still going to get hurt if you get nailed. So let's set it up to think about the people who are not going at speed, those who are walking, and how we can support in safety and not argue over statistics is kind of where my perspective was. So I'm going to leave that there.
I appreciate the discussion. I propose that we go back to what your question is whether or not we want to, I propose that we vote on whether or not we want to make a resolution.
I like the proposal. How do we feel? I'm on the side of, I don't think we have consensus, and I don't think we should opine.
So call the question on whether or not we do a resolution on this. Can I get a second?
On which ones?
All-
On
all of
On whether or not.
anything.
We are going to write a resolution
Right.
and stop.
So the
No.
proposal is to call the question on whether or not we're going to opine on this matter at all. I have given a second.
I mean-
We might have to,
Straw poll, not a resolution.
Yeah, that you.
Whether or not even.
we might need to hold until Mitch gets back.
He's back.
Oh, there you go.
Ta-da.
Mitch, we're gonna do a straw poll about whether or not to opine at all, given the lack of consensus.
I suggest we do it bill by bill, because I can tell you there's some I would say absolutely no to. Well, if you lump them together, it's a definite no, because there's no way.
Well, I mean, we.
I think 66 is pretty much, I don't think, I think all of us
Right.
agree not to have that.
Right.
Okay, so we,
Let out, we down
well-
to two statements.
what we could do
Actually,
is
here.
say, all of
Very
this is a great effort and it's not enough. We want driver's licenses for these operators.
I
We
don't
want
think we have-
inspections for the operators and we want the registry.
I agree, that's.
But that comes after we decide if we want to write a resolution.
Yeah, but what would the resolution
You
say?
know, that-
Well,
Oh, I don't think we should even get there yet.
Oh, I already wrote one, never mind.
The one thing I would think that because of the, I think it's the bureaucratic thing where, because of the wording of that, people in your situation are included in that. And obviously, you're not going.
So we called the question and seconded. Can we vote? We called the question and
It's
seconded.
a straw poll, so it doesn't
In the
matter.
middle of saying something,
We're
Brenda.
just trying to move it along.
Okay.
Yeah.
the question, are we gonna have a resolution or not?
Well,
The resolution should
You'll
fully
spin it.
support
In the
existing
mud.
bills. If we're not gonna support an existing bill, why bother?
Right.
So let's resolve that issue.
To suggest better
If
legislation.
you wanna suggest another, you can present a presentation of what you wanna do with the resolution, we'll see it bill with
All
that.
right, so y'all want to take a,
Because it's so, there's so much literature, so many pending bills out there already.
Let's,
okay.
not gonna vote on it yet, but okay.
All from Australia.
Let's
Yes, sir.
take a poll of who believes or does not believe that we should stay out of opining on any legislation at all. I think we should stay out of opining on any legislation at all. Betty, what do you think?
I would tend to agree, given the lack of consensus and the limitations that Jerry points out.
Brendan,
I don't think we should write a resolution.
Cody,
No,
no resolution, right? Okay. Mitch,
I think the full board might.
Yes or no?
No, Betty, not yes or no.
It is yes or no.
how good?
You get to vote yes or no.
Yeah, yes, I do, because I don't think this community represents the full board.
Okay?
Okay.
Yes, and we could add amendments to.
Right, right.
To these,
Okay.
Erratic, yeah, exactly.
Carrie?
I mean, does it matter if that we even keep going if it's already?
Right. So I would say no. I'm gonna say no.
I mean,
We
it
have a
honestly
majority.
doesn't
Oh,
matter.
it's already
what
over.
I say, right?
Majority says
Well,
no.
I said the majority says no, so we don't have to.
You
short
went
translate.
around the room.
Wait a minute. Did you ask
No.
everybody?
Oh,
Keep going. We
I'm
need.
trying to.
We're trying to.
Well, anyway,
Yeah.
I mean, like, why does it matter?
Because,
We got 2 yeses.
like, everyone should speak.
If the rest of y'all are yeses, then.
I abstain.
Principle.
Mimi wants to do all the amendments.
excuse absence.
Tammy,
I just don't know why we.
Tammy, tell us whether Justine has an excused absence and how you feel. Same time.
And I'm a yes, as you probably can guess, at least on some of them. So I would be a yes.
Okay.
Some-
Okay.
Just,
I'm torn because I don't like them the way that they're written, but, so I think I would
And-
abstain because I need amendments in there.
But that's what you do. That's the point of a resolution.
We write a resolution. Okay, I see what you're saying. I thought that, okay. Yeah, then yes, then I'm a yes. 'Cause I want the amendments in there. We need something, but I don't like the way they are right now.
If
four
I-
yes, 5 no.
The answer is still no, so we will not move forward with the resolution. if it's
Could this,
not-
could this be brought up in the full board, or it can't be?
You can,
No.
you might get people
Bring
yelling.
it up as new business. You can bring it up.
Yeah, at the very end, you could have new business with a presentation.
I think the full board might have.
You're parliamentarian.
You can. bring it up.
Wait, so wait, what's the issue then? So it's the committee,
That's Mitch.
well, then he has a right,
Listen to
no,
Mitch.
he has a right to bring it up in the beginning, but it's not gonna be for a vote.
I figured.
I mean, if you wanna bring it up,
You can bring it up like as new business. you
Right,
just-
Yeah, you
right.
can propose the
Right.
business and
So
Sorry.
it can be, and keep in mind, any member of any committee can bring a topic forward. Okay, and even if the chair decides that the committee can outvote the chair. So,
So what does that mean? So that means that like executive committee is gonna bring this forward, even though transportation committee says no. And then the chair of transportation gets to outvote the chair of the board? I don't understand.
no, the way the bylaws work, it
Okay.
says very, very clearly on there that if a majority of the people on a committee want to talk about something, but the chair doesn't, the committee can outvote the chair. In this case, it was the committee voted against it. But if it gets brought up at full board and the majority of the board says, yes, we should opine on this, then it has to go back. Then it'll come up as a topic.
It's back to the committee.
Right.
Then it comes
Right.
back to this committee. Okay.
I think it should come back. I would prefer it comes back to this committee.
We're forced
Yeah.
to write a resolution and then we take that to the full
Because
board.
I think we agree that those bills, we all agree that there are things that we don't like about them. One, we don't want at all, and there are other things that even
See,
though.
you're saying one that we don't want at all, but I actually am fine with that one as well.
Okay, then
Right, yeah.
I
Right.
take that away, but that we all, there are certain things that we wish that we would like to amend that.
I also want to address just, and then we can move on.
Sure.
Actually, none of this addresses sidewalk, cycling.
No, you're right, doesn't do anything.
And that's one of the biggest issues that we all complain about, on top of them running red lights, et cetera.
But if
It's
they're-
illegal. It's already illegal.
we already have rules against that, but now if they have licenses, and I'm hoping some kind of driver license, you can attach a penalty to a vehicle, at least you can identify it now,
But
and there's enforcement.
that's also not included in those bills of having a license and having enforcement.
The
And
number of things that we need.
Timing on that, which I agree with you, and that would be something that we.
And then that's also in hopes that they actually add that to the bills.
We already voted on it.
Sorry, yes.
So what are we, so the
Sorry.
next one is about bicycle.
But it's the flip side,
Is it
talking about the infrastructure.
No, we're
We're
at.
going to number 3.
streets that are just for bicycles?
No, they not,
No
well,
cars. That's
we
what
have that, but this bill isn't about that.
they want. It's gonna be great.
Power through this one.
Okay,
Next one, this should be fairly quick, because the bill is. Well, yes and no.
I thought we were going to be done.
Yes,
I don't know how it could be.
yes.
Well, no, I mean, it's a pretty straightforward bill. And it is sponsored by the chair of the Transportation Committee at City Council.
Not you.
Well, not at City Council.
I'm teasing.
This intro.
Not yet.
Oh, never. But the subtitle for this particular bill is making street design and infrastructure safer, given the increased use of electric bicycles and related collisions. So that's the background she was thinking about. Hence it's in the title. You're gonna see it's broader than that, is why I made that. Next. And so you can see they spell out a little bit more. This was taken directly from the legislation and the site. I didn't make up any of this. And it creates a task force, and they are going to report back to the mayor and the speaker of the council within 270 days, which is nice. At least it's in a 9-month timeframe. So it's somewhat timely.
Who makes up a task force?
Probably city council, probably the transportation committee, but it's broad.
Point, no, it lists it here, it says,
Yeah, but they're appointed, and a lot of them aren't
Oh.
city council members.
one is the DOT commissioner or their
Right.
representative, 3 appointed by the city council. And, but at least something open, it says other people can be
Right,
asked, invited, I don't know what that means.
because they want people who are experts in the topic, and so they're leaving it kind of open with letting, I guess, the team decide, or.
But they said to, or I'm not, maybe attorneys can help, they said they can invite and they can participate. Does that mean they have the same
Voting time.
ranking as everyone else?
Say no, they don't, they join the committee as committee members, you're probably saying, but
Maybe like a public member.
Consultant.
Task force makes a
they
report.
may not even vote.
Yeah, it's just a report.
So
I
that,
don't know.
and then that shows that
Maybe to inform.
the members are only 6, 3 by the city council, and then, a speaker of the city council, and then 3 by the mayor. I don't know, but does it always have to be uneven? I always thought it had to be uneven, these things.
So
Okay,
they're just writing a report.
okay.
Anyway, what I wanted to go on to do next, because I took this next slide. This is from the bill itself. So it's actually broader than the title and the little descriptor means. The task force would also make recommendations for legislation and policy that would make street design and infrastructure safer for pedestrians, motorists, cyclists, and operators of e-bikes. You wouldn't notice that from the description or the title of the bill, so I thought I'd pull it out.
Gotta read the bill.
Okay, among other things, the recommendations should take into account the anticipated effects on stakeholders, especially pedestrians with disabilities and individuals who use electric bicycles as their primary mode of transportation for commercial purposes. So they kind of point out who they want to especially hear from and make sure their points of view are incorporated in what's done. And also the data available on collisions involving e-bicycles and any gaps in data collection and transparency is part of the scope of this particular committee. So they are to define what it is and how they're going to resolve collecting that data so they have it for future information. This addresses what Tammy brought up before. We don't have a lot to work with, and neither does anybody else. This bill is trying to fix that problem for the future. Okay, so this, hopefully you see this is a lot broader than it looks like at first. glance.
it'll also identify when you can't collect data and maybe substantiate the need for either additional registration and licensing or not.
True, and they would have to, in the purposes of doing this, it talks about, they have to look at the sites where there have been accidents, especially those that have led to deaths of people, and look and inspect the street design and infrastructure that's available or not available there, and use that as part of their decision-making, informing process.
Besides that, would that also include collecting data on, let's just say, whether the car ran a red light or the e-bike ran a red light to see like where the fault lies?
Yeah. Yes, they're looking into they're doing a full investigation of the site as well as what happened.
Okay,
Because otherwise what are their recommendations were?
Okay.
So, yeah.
Does nobody already do this?
That's why I said it with the chair of the transportation committee, who I think put something together saying, we have all these problems and.
What is, Kate,
Yes.
y'all don't do this? Well, stuff?
We have a policy that does, come up with recommendations, but not in this more formalized way.
Okay.
Becky, would you like to go on and just hear some of the testimony and then you can speak, Eric, because this might answer it. Next slide. And there's only a few pieces of testimony. This was from the symposium on reimagining mobility safety. In fact, there's a whole bunch of elected officials, including Senator Siegel, who were on this committee. But anyway, if you look at the first item, street infrastructure is inadequate for pedestrians, cyclists, and delivery workers. So again, this has been complained about forever. Next. This one, finally, 131, 1311, DOT testimony. Look at the very end of it. They support this legislation. So the DOT is out in support of this legislation. They merely say, and I'm a little confused by it, given what I put it in the second slide there, is they encourage the council to broaden the scope to include plans to regulate the modes rather than just street design and infrastructure. And in fact, they are looking at a lot of the issues, including getting the information if they need. And this one, again, from Transalt, they again support it because they've been supportive of infrastructure. Next. The Streets PAC, which is another state streets advocacy group, and again, they're in support of it. They weren't in support of the licensing, the registration one. But they, again, say infrastructure is a really important thing to change. Because how can you expect people to drive in a reasonable way when they don't have a reasonable space to move it? So that's kind of it. And this is mostly for Cody, but actually for everybody. I was shocked when I saw the state. This is actually a video, and it goes on and on. Well, I say, and this is nothing compared to, this goes on and on.
It is a traffic jam.
It is, well, they don't jam, but they move it at an interval and they just keep going and going. Look at how much of the lane they take up.
The whole thing.
Imagine if there was some going in the other direction.
Imagine if they bump into each other and all those drivers get squashed in those vehicles. It looks
So I
like a
want you-
nightmare.
I want you to look at the infrastructure with these in places, commercial, standard commercial e-bikes in place. I think that's kind of important for you. I want you to get an idea, after the first item as well as this, how many more of these commercial e-bikes could be on our streets?
Is there just a, sorry.
Is it really important to have somebody who's looking at this issue and the infrastructure with all of the changes going on that are going on and have been going on for a while?
This is a commercial e-bike? These pictures?
This is an Amazon truck.
These are Amazon trucks, and if you look at the bottom, because it's too small for me to read it now, it's by the Brooklyn Marine Terminal.
Yeah.
I'll take
It's
a picture.
all Amazon vehicles. They're coming out from where they do their own loading from big trucks and storage onto these devices. This would kind of be like a micro dock done inside.
Oh, they're blue.
Hey,
They're
Betty,
small vehicles.
can you go back one? So
Well,
that's perfect. This is a question, I guess, for Kate, because Huma and the other team is not here. If we're looking at the zones that we talked about at the top of the meeting, is this the rollout from the zone potential? Is this also an option?
The photo pictured in the slide?
So when we're talking from the very beginning, where we're talking about setting up the micro hubs, is this one of the things that might come out of a micro hub that we might expect versus the cargo bike users, right? Being more, this,
Yes. There were multiple options for micro hubs, not where cargo bikes This is one example of a mode that could be used used at a micro hub. There's also the option of goods being transferred to a hand truck. So it's not necessarily going to look like this. But these kinds of vehicles can be used.
It's,
And can I say, this kind of streaming of vehicles coming out, we're probably more likely to see it. If you remember the presentation with Empire Clean Cities, I think it was back in January, and they talked about marine vessels bringing in loaded cargo bikes. That would be kind of an instance where you'd have a bunch of cargo bikes getting off one after another and leaving the area. That's
This one-
obviously more what's.
I just think that we need to, I just want to be as comprehensive and inclusive as we can be in our thought process here. So when we're talking about cargo, micro hubs, when you're looking, I find this picture petrifying if this was on my residential street. That's all I'm saying. I was thinking more of the Amazon guys on the carts, the bikes riding, 2x2, 3x3, not 10 of these guys.
That's what
lined
I
up.
thought. Yeah, I agree with you.
Oh, yeah, I want to clear, this is coming from inside an area where Amazon is doing major unloading or storage of things.
These are on the street in Brooklyn.
And this is in Brooklyn, I was gonna say, and this is Brooklyn.
Like a residential street in Brooklyn is like a bunch of these.
Right.
It's bonkers. And they look so like you hit one of those into a tree, it's just gonna squash you. Like I don't know, it looks really scary. Like we have safety crumple zones, everything in cars for a reason. It's because they're heavy and they smash people into things.
That's over 1,000 pounds. I bet you it's over.
No, they aren't. This came up, if you remember Dutch X as speaking at the Empire Clean City, they kind of denigrated, these e-vehicles, saying that they weren't commercial, and so the weight wasn't all that, it was in the hundreds, it's heavy. But the way they went to those other ones, which looks like a little trailer behind, was integrated, they were saying that can carry over 800 pounds, which of course is making them much heavier. And so they've gone as heavy as 1,000.
I'm saying gross with the weight and the vehicle itself, not the payload.
Can't get close.
I think we should steer back to the legislation or something.
But I was gonna say, it's not the point of the legislation, of then pointing out the need, why there's a need for it, which is why I put it in.
Okay.
Obviously, our infrastructure is needed.
Resolution, question mark.
Well, is there any comments about the bill or
Task force?
concerns
I
or?
think a task force would be great. But do we need to say that?
Very.
Do you want to support the bill and ask our elected officials to support it?
Yes.
Yeah, in principle, yes. I guess for me, it's who's on the task force, because that's the, whether it's skewed one way or another.
Okay.
They're in principle, okay, in principle, of course, it's good to try to make things better, but depending on who's the task force, that would be a concern of mine, as far as it wasn't down the middle.
Eric,
I think the task that they have, or the mission is incomplete. It doesn't state anywhere about the efficient and resilient movement of people and goods. With this mission that they have, yes, safety is paramount, it is, but the purpose of having Department of Transportation is to focus on movement of people and goods in an efficient manner, and it doesn't address any of that. I want there to be safety for all means of transportation safely, but we also have to get people and goods to where they need to go. And this doesn't say any of that as where the mission is with this task.
We can add both of those things to the
one
resolution.
second.
I agree with Eric and the, not. As far as
I'm gonna take a moment.
Yeah, I need the moment.
our infrastructure is woefully inadequate, and it doesn't really address, for instance, the photo of the little industrial Amazon bikes taking over Columbia Street in Brooklyn. That shouldn't be happening, because actually people jog and run recreationally there. So this should be something that is integrated into the existing infrastructure in a way that takes it away out of recreational runs. Alternative transportation plans.
So we should talk about whether or not we want to write a
So maybe
resolution.
we don't plan on this either.
Or we say we
Well,
support it and
that's,
suggest.
say that's the yes or no. about do we opine at all? If there's a no to opining, then of course there's no suggestions to make because there would be no resolution.
We could say yes and suggest.
That was my point in the last one, yeah.
Well, and I got that. I said, and we will get that information, and we'll ask what people want to see in the resolution, both the statement. But if the answer is no, then it's kind of a moot point. That's all I'm saying. So to move it along, we'll look for a straightforward yes, no. Want a resolution, we don't want a resolution, and if the answer is yes, we'll worry about.
Tammy? Thumbs up? You would like a resolution?
And Sam would.
Justine?
I'm in.
Are there any no's is the real question.
I'm a
Okay,
yes, sorry.
Moving forward.
What do we want to include?
Well, look, well, first, why don't you get up the draft resolution, because that has some of the wording for the therefore be it resolved, they can start looking at. And I've written down that we'd like it to include efficient and safe movement of goods, with consideration of
Efficient and resilient, meaning that it should focus on being able to provide transportation among all means, like all different types of weather. And not just rely on any one type means of transportation, whether micro mobility or truck or car, all has to be multi.
And Mitch wanted more in there about the selection of members.
Yeah, but who do you want? Because that's a whole nother point to see that everybody would have to agree, because I don't know why you're trying to hand
Yeah,
that.
Say like a
Suggesting people to be on the task force.
No, but I think you're thinking like,
fair and transparent.
Well, don't yes, who are you thinking for? Obviously, it's kind of a general kind of category.
Can I make a suggestion?
What's that? Let's let Mitch articulate what he
No, I didn't say
thinks.
that.
I think
My
No,
suggest,
no,
my suggest,
You wanted,
Yes, go ahead, Tammy.
whoever was to be chosen to participate, you wanted it from a broad.
Okay,
Yeah.
Tammy, go ahead.
my suggestion was going to be that to address some of the public concerns that the task force should have series of public meetings to engage with the public directly. And that way it's less, it gives you a broad range of opportunities to have public input. And well publicized and posted public hearings to enable more public input for the task force.
That's fine. Eric?
I want to mention also, it says this task force shall meet no less than once per quarter. This task force is only supposed to last 9 months. It should be once per month, no minimum, no.
Yeah,
less than one per month.
I mean, I think that's like kind of standard with task force, like that's an official meeting, like doesn't mean they're not working.
But
Yeah.
if it's only 9-month duration, it's.
They're meeting twice for 2 to 3 times the most.
Yeah. I mean, fine, I mean, I don't think it makes much of a difference. I mean, they're gonna be working, they're gonna make a report.
Yeah, but without the public meeting or a meeting of all the task force members, there's nothing to compel them to actually get together. All can be done separately.
Okay, monthly.
Or you could ask that they have an open, a report back to the public at least once per quarter on the status of their.
9 months is short, and if they're going to be holding public meetings, that's their report back, and that they're
See, that's
engaging.
funny because 9 months is a very long time for me. To write a report and to do the research, and some of this is known at Meta, that wouldn't fly. Like seriously, when I heard task force to write a report, I thought, oh, 3 months. So I guess in the public world and private world, speed is very different. And I know government is slow, but to me, that's very slow.
You think they're gonna get the data very fast?
They can get it faster.
To get FOIL requests.
Well, it's not just data, you gotta interview all these like different.
I understand that, but like, that's a long time, but that's
They have
a moot point.
responsibilities, as in some of them are on city council itself.
Yeah.
You do have a full-time job in addition.
Anything else?
Question, Eric, I'm sure you'll learn.
No comment. Anything else?
I mean, who knows?
Okay, there's nothing else, you can say you go to the end, and therefore be it resolved, is really all they're particularly voting on at this time.
Yeah, better.
Other recommendations? Yes. Eric's. Oh. This Mitch's.
And then meet up. That's all.
Was there only one therefore?
Mhm.
And it's really just the wording of the bill itself. So if there's a word that I slipped something in there.
Justine, did you have something to say?
I was gonna wonder, could we put in there as a therefore that, okay, so this is great because this is the wording of the introduction, which was wonderful. But what about the collection of the data as part of CB1? Therefore be it resolved, CB1 wants the data collected, right? And put forth. Because we don't have it now, like Ms. Mimi, you were
That's a requi-
saying.
But that's a requirement of the committee. I mean,
I don't know what that means.
They're
It's
gonna,
something they're charged with doing already.
I thought that's in the bill.
It's in the bill itself.
I mean, I don't know. I kind of like that and push it because I think it's ridiculous that we don't have the data already and that they haven't been, somebody hasn't been collecting this and putting this forth. So we should support that part of it too, no? I mean, that's my suggestion.
Aren't we supporting all of it?
Well, it's in the
Yeah,
bill,
yeah.
including that.
Yeah.
So then it's.
it sounds like she wants to double stamp to make sure that
Yeah,
they
like,
say it.
This
Yeah.
is super important and don't
That
you
was
get
my
rid of
point.
it.
Yes,
Or-
exactly.
or
Thank
are
you,
we-
Brendan.
Doesn't hurt to double stamp it.
Are you saying that you want the data as it relates to CB1, or you just want you just want to emphasize that the data gets collected and shared?
I think it's fair to say that, to emphasize the data gets collected and shared because I think that's too much work to have it specific to CB1, right? They're doing the
All
whole
the data
city.
that they're collecting, so it's to Carrie's point of like
I
emphasizing.
agree with that.
It's emphasizing, that's all. And it's just the same language. You may have it in here already. I didn't see it because you flipped, but it's the same language as in one of your slides. It's nothing different.
If it doesn't hurt, if it don't emphasize it, it doesn't change anything, it doesn't hurt anything.
Right, but we're not asking, a portion of the bill is already there, and is there any part of the bill that you don't want? The fact is you want all of it, so to point out one thing is good, kind of suggests the others aren't really that valuable, which is why I see it as, why are we pointing out that we want the data? But I can put down that, we appreciate collection of data.
Yeah, I wasn't supporting that. I was just trying to clarify Justine's point.
Oh, no, yeah.
I disagree, but that's okay. I am outvoted.
Well,
But we
Well, but I'm emphasizing
can
it.
put in a whereas, you can add in the whereas.
Oh, I'm gonna whereas to say, we appreciate that the bill is requiring.
Yes.
this.
Okay, that's fair.
And
I would be,
appreciate
I
that
would be
they're gonna
grateful
look
if
at-
that was added. Thank you.
Because we're not gonna put in we're appreciating that they look at the sites where people have been killed.
No, she already.
Okay.
Okay.
But I'm warning other people, don't bring up everything, please,
No.
please.
Did you have a follow-up question?
Yes.
Second.
Okay, Zach, you'd like to take a vote? And this will be an affirmative vote, that's affirmative, so we'll go with, are
Okay.
there any nays? Noes?
Any opposed?
Reading online now, none. Are there any abstentions? Are there any recusals? And it's unanimous, thank you.
Hey.
We still got news you can use. Y'all always forget about that.
That's the only reason I come to this committee.
The last slide, they can go pretty quickly. We should know, what's going on with the feds, there's a lot that's kind of interesting, but it's still. Oh, thank you.
You're good at this. All right.
No, not yet.
Finish with the
Bye.
recording, Zach?
Bye, miss you.
Not yet.
no, we got Betty's.
I'm there. I'm collecting the votes.
He has to put yes next to all of our names. You don't know how hard that is.
That makes it really tough.
Let's remind everybody, because there was interest in the Route 9A, the 2-year study being done by the state DOT. They are having their first public meeting. It is going to be either in person or you can go to the virtual one. Notice they're on different dates. May 20th at the Javits Center in person.
That's
It's going to be Tuesday, June 3rd. That's an evening one, but it's going to be via Zoom. And you sign up on, right, Eventbrite to go. And I want to point out that you have to do a scanning to look for it, search, this is what it looks like on an Eventbrite when you go to it. They are
Eddie, can you make sure we get the flyer and Zach sends it out? We want to actually send it out every week, starting this week.
I don't have
through
a
to-
flyer, I just did screenshots.
Your screenshots were great. That would be helpful.
Exactly. We'll take both.
Like, yeah, Zach has a copy of all these, so that's not a problem. For the Blue Highways, this was announced by the EDC and ConAg Global, which is kind of interesting. They are looking at it from the Bronx side, where again, that's where the big trucks come in and the warehouses are, and they're worried about all the trucks that are also leaving from those warehouses, trying to get down to the asthma and other problems that they're having, traffic and otherwise. So EDC is starting with the Bronx at this particular one. And you notice, where do you think these main vehicles are ending up?
Here, where we
Pier
are,
6. Well, that's the only one EDC has gotten to so far as the receiving end. And again, we know they're not set up yet. We don't have dates. But as this one gets developed, and they will be loading them onto the cargo bikes, whatever they're taking out of the trucks or the warehouses will go onto cargo bikes, which is kind of interesting and informative because it tells us what we heard before, but they're looking for vessels that will move already loaded cargo bikes. So on those platforms, not necessarily going to be doing a lot of reloading and loading the cargo bikes. There's something to be driving them off, and they could be streaming out as those Amazon vehicles were in that earlier shot. That's what I wanted. That's the news you're supposed to get from this particular one.
will they have,
And
drivers on them?
sometimes Skype.
Where do the drivers come from? Do they just put the bikes on the boat and then send the boat down the river and then drivers appear? Or they?
I don't know if they're based at the one end of the, I don't know. Maybe they like the marine ride, so they take it. Maybe they don't, and so they just appear in wherever the receiving end is. Which in this case is the downtown Skyport. It's already been named, so don't call it. And Tammy's already shown this before, but never. Don't call it the downtown port because it is now official.
Skyport.
Yes.
Rebranding.
It is rebranded. And remember, we showed a resolution about the green wave and why we have an unlimited number of Ubers and Lyfts and things that come as long as they were electric. Well, now the city agrees with us. And in
Great.
fact, if you go to the next one, you can see the numbers, pretty horrifying. In 3 weeks, look at the number of applications they did say no, in addition to the approximately 81,000 we already have, they turned it off 8,640 new ones. And they are not going to rescind those that they already approved, those, but nevertheless, should have read our resolution. Okay, they did, but they wanted to wait. Next, first 100 days of congestion pricing, yes, it's moving along quite well. They're obviously collecting data that can also be passed on to the feds. We'll see what happens, because that's only another week or two before that next deadline comes.
Cars don't need to honk anymore.
Next. All of a sudden, for these, since this, maybe this is for you, you're a data freak like I am. There are also all these dashboards, and I had to think, this one is the NYU is set up specifically about the congestion pricing zone. So if you want to know all kinds of things about where traffic is, how heavy it is, who it is, and everybody else, there's a website for it now.
Thank you.
Next. The DOT is now putting up their bicycle counts. And I happen to show the one for the Brooklyn Bridge, which is one of the sites they're counting on. Nevertheless, next.
4,000.
4,400 in one day.
Yes, if you go to the next, now you can see kind of what it looks, kind of data you can get. And you can see I chose weekly, but you can manipulate the data by, do you want it by daily? Do you want it by monthly? Do you want it annually? What do you want? And then you can
Is that Zach riding back and forth? I'm just checking.
Very closely. Yep, that's Zach.
There they are.
I just passed it.
I'm not saying, you have to give Cody some credit.
Does that only show cyclists or does it also show vehicles as an option?
No, this is a bicycle counter, very specifically a bicycle counter. Next.
Only bicycles, not cargo
And
bikes.
there is new legislation that was passed in April. And they want to track the street plans and what's being done with that, the New York City street plans. So they have passed this bill, and next we'll show you kind of what it looks like. This is for 2024. As you can see, bus lanes didn't do a great job, actually. Same thing with bike lanes. Although in 2023, it was single digits. They say made it up to 29.3.
I don't understand this data. What is this?
What are we looking at?
How many they actually made, how many miles of it they
Oh,
actually
okay.
made. And
Oh,
so the benchmark is what's required in the law, and what the DOT actually did in miles is written in the other. And did they
Okay.
beat it, or did they lose it? You can see they did beat it in two different categories. The people who are blind or have low vision, I'm very happy about the accessible pedestrian signals, because I always wondered how they ever cross not being able to see light, hear anything. Okay. The feds, what are they doing? 'Cause of course, with all the chaos that's going on with the Department of Transportation too, I wanted to make sure we saw that. And not only do they want to shut down congestion pricing, but they have been doing other things. Next. Get to see them.
oh, yeah.
They fired 400 people from the FAA. Supposedly, they now show air traffic controllers were exempt. That's because they hired them back and then made this exemption. And in fact, a number of them did not want to come back, if you were following the news. So, yeah, and we have the problems at Newark Airport are tied to that. If you ever wondered why Newark Airport, not JFK or LaGuardia, they use the Philadelphia Airport for their air traffic controllers, does Newark.
Yeah,
With
that was
others use the New York, the other two use a New York-based information, and so they haven't been having as much trouble in the FAA. But they also fired, this is for you, Mimi, I know you're concerned about safety of the automated vehicles.
Yes.
They fired 30 members of National Highway and Traffic Safety. Those that assess risks of self-driving cars are who they fired. And it gets funnier. It gets funnier with how much they don't talk to each other. If you look at the end, the last paragraph, they released a new framework to ease regulations for self-driving cars, which is just as good because they don't have anyone else to do anything with it. And they want to, but they have to share more data with the regulator, but they just fired the people who look at the data. Anyway.
You can't make this shit, you just can't make this shit up. I'm sorry. It's just,
Well, look at the data. We've got the AIs to hallucinate about it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm hungry, y'all.
Well, you could go.
Anyway,
This is just the.
so they are laying out the framework, which I agree should be national, not state by state, because a lot of people cross state lines. Next, because it does get just more and more humorous. And so one of the things they've done now is, if you look at the last paragraph, they've expanded the automated vehicle exemption program, which used to be foreign vehicles, now it includes local vehicles. To make it easier for American producers to get their automated vehicles on the road with less looking. Next, and to show people promoting this whole activity, this is Waymo, which is of course,
Which is in San Francisco and other places.
this is coming out in a journal that I assume is refereed. It'll be interesting to look at it again as the news, I'm sure will, this is Waymo reporting it. Once it comes out in the publication, we'll start to see other people looking at it critically, and that'll be interesting. I hope your information is correct. That'd be great. If you look at how much better these automated with no drivers or safety person in the vehicle are versus a driver in a vehicle. I only wish this was true.
I don't understand the numbers.
How many fewer
They're really,
near misses or credits there are?
To human drivers. What?
Yeah, compared to vehicles with human drivers, they compared their data to crash data with drivers.
How many cars do they have?
I don't know.
a lot.
They have thousands and hundreds of thousands. They have
Really?
millions of miles. And also the speculations came out today, what it'll look like on the highway. Once you have these automated vehicles being purchased by individuals.
That was nice.
Yeah, I know, the haves and the
That looks like a train car, doesn't it?
Of course, look at the other vehicle, because they're drivers. But then, and the question was, the question of the article was, is this really our real tomorrow, the haves and have-nots, you'll even see them on the road. Next. And in fact, it gets even more crazy. Some of them are actually working on a vehicle that's big enough, it actually becomes a part of your car, of your house. Until you simply disengage, which makes it easier to charge your battery at night because you're just driving yourself into it. But you just probably have, it's crazier. But anyway, go back to Aurora, which is a technology company. They started to run freight vehicles. These are full semis. They now have 1,200 and they are running in Texas. They are looking to go to Phoenix and more in Texas. And at this point, because they have no driver in them and one of the glitches they're trying to smooth out now. Right now, if a truck breaks down, they have to put out those little triangular things in the back that show with flashing lights to say it's not operational. Of course, no driver, you can't do that, but it could be adapted other ways. Anyway, they are planning eventually by 2027 to be selling them to the general public. So more and more people who all have fleets of trucks could be buying these vehicles in the future. You'll see more and more vehicles without drivers, including semis. Next. And curbsides, because they are getting more fought over and much more value. This is just a quirk of next one. This happens to be a group that Inrex, which is a private company, and I'm not sponsoring them, but I am using something that they publish, which is the next one. If you look at to the second to last line, in New York's Tribeca district, a driveway, district driveways take up 2.5% of the curb. Things we didn't know before. It's interesting to have a company, that was doing this for many, many hundreds of companies that are hiring their services and then putting out some of this data for public. It's really kind of interesting, the stuff they're finding. I'm sure many of these are loading docks that they're talking about.
Yeah,
But
I
never
don't think
they're
they're driveways.
Well, but they're still considered driveways because I know the DOT calls them that. And that was the problem
With
with
a
putting.
loading dock with a sidewalk. in
But
front
that
of it?
was the curb, that was the problem, putting in a curb, crosswalk for PS 150 where they wanted it, was there's a driveway across the street, which in fact is to a loading dock. Which is why the DOT calls them driveways.
No, there's an actual driveway across from it.
Actual driveway, but they are classified as driveways by the DOT. Because their refusal.
The one next to the cleaners is an actual driveway into an actual garage.
There's one on like West Broadway where it's a loading dock and there's a sidewalk, like that block next to Odeon. I only mostly know because I keep my dog off leash and so I look out for those areas so that like he won't get hit.
Well, I
yeah,
have to do the
the one across from the
I'm
Odeon.
not entirely sure
It's
that's
fine.
legal.
Okay, so just so you know.
It's like at the intersection. It's literally right next to our
We're gonna be seeing more and more information about curb space. Now it's becoming a big business and there are more and more companies coming in actually to sell this information. And businesses are already buying the information. And another warning, since unfortunately we already opined on a rule change, a new rule. Where we kind of said, no, don't let any fundraising occur, any money for a concessionaire. But in fact, if you look at City Hall, it's now starting to talk about the budget, which is not finalized. It does start on July 1st though, so it would involve this summer. City Hall, it put 2.1 million in fiscal year 2026, starting July 1st, for the Open Streets program. Of course, the DOT is saying it costs $5 million to run. So this 2.1 million is still going to weigh under, fund those nonprofits that are running these various. So just so you know, that's why this information is. Next. Oh, the Lime Riders, so now we're into e-scooters. And what's interesting about this is the line kind of right in the middle. The program's goal of Lime is to expand to all 5 boroughs. Right now they're in East, I don't know. So we'll have to follow this and see. Originally, the DOT said absolutely not in Manhattan. And they had to get permission to even go into Eastern Queens recently, which was the only addition. But nevertheless, it was intriguing to see this. I had to copy it and go, what? And there's 3 companies. Next. And you see these various kinds of bikes that are out there and why they're being pushed. The AARP is also getting involved in this for seniors. You go to the next one. They have what they call a bike audit toolkit, and they are pushing, there are bicycles for all of you seniors to look at and the various uses and educating them. So they are also looking to broaden the population that looks at them. And of the seniors I know, and there are many of them that use bikes, some of them even, because after total joint replacements, they use it to do their exercise. So there are lots of reasons why. And why they also like to use e-bikes, because it gives them the power to use it. So for those of you who don't like pedal assisted bikes, consider you have a lot of seniors who are attracted to that reason. Next. And super speeders, because this is to kind of to feel you out for, do you want to even hear this next month? You notice they all pick their own territory, which I found kind of interesting. They don't overlap. People get lots and lots of they like cameras.
These are single pieces.
These are single people. The color is one car. You go to the next one, which luckily I cut out the bit about, see the green vehicle, which happens to like West Side Highway, obviously. The next.
Wait, so
One person?
One person. Wait, you have the next week numbers, which is why I know is what you want. They have 470 speed camera tips.
And this is
Mostly
one of the most incredible things I've ever seen.
I know.
That are a terror.
Collection that's kind of interesting. But anyway, there is now a piece of legislation at the state called Super Speeder Bill. And what they would do is not take away their license by any means, but what they would have them install a speed limiter. The speed limiter is, it's very much like drunk driving. If you have alcohol in your breath, you can't start it. This would enforce on these super speeders. They would have to put this on their vehicle, and that means they can't go faster than the speed limit of that street.
Why are they
Why
allowed
don't
to drive at all?
Take their license away.
Yeah.
Because the person who just killed a family of 3, actually a family of 5, but she killed 3 of them, 2 of them weren't there, had a suspended license, so they know very well, lots of people.
They could just not get the.
Yeah, what if they just drive a different car?
Yeah.
Right, but many people don't have that ability.
They could sell this car with a governor, like blue Mercedes Benz could totally do something else.
Right.
You could impound the vehicle.
Right, but it's obviously more agreeable to more politicians potentially. So the question is, do you even agree with this method, or do you say, I want all or nothing? But anyway, if you're interested, send me an email, think about it, and this could be on next month's agenda, otherwise the speeder
Shed their vehicle impounded. It's supposed to be a serious crime to have this.
Right.
Yeah.
They should go to jail.
470 speed.
470
Like,
times.
or something, or have like community service, if not, I mean, jail's like really expensive for literally everybody, but like, you know, community service.
Right, but you could have thresholds, at 100 tickets, you get the speed limiter, at 200 tickets.
So make it, add this.
Well, like, when does
How many points does this person get on their license?
Let's stop
Probably
recording.
not if it's somebody who did it, they don't.
This adjourn.
Adjourn.
I mean, yeah, I mean, they-
And keep in
50
mind
tickets
that
should go
you
for
and perhaps new CB1 members, because again, they will be coming on.